Noboru is ridiculed by everyone for possessing the weakest unique skill. He had accumulated 10,000 abilities that were completely useless. But one day, he reached Batsuzan Kaisei. Noboru sacrificed all of his useless abilities to obtain an S-rank skill and become unmatched. From dark holes, other realms spread, setting buildings ablaze in the night. Within these places, dreaded, mystery-filled dungeons emerged. Hidden there, powerful monsters dwell, ready to attack. All of this appeared 50 years ago, and remains a threat to this day. Wondering if he's facing the boss, the young man meets its fierce gaze. He declares this will be the monster's last day. Humanity continues to resist. The fight rages on. He prepares himself, activating 100 powerful skills. With a confident smile, he shouts, activating the Batsuzan Kaisei attack. With a single strike against the monster, the story of this brave young man begins. Let's see who's stronger, he says, gripping his sword tightly. The young man charges forward, sword in hand, letting out a battle cry. With a powerful strike, the hero fights to reach the top, clashing with the flaming monster. Back in the city, the Joie announces a major achievement on TV. The J8 dungeon had been conquered by a heroic class explorer. That explorer is Takagami Subaru, celebrating his 7th dungeon conquest. Watching TV, a father and son witness something unprecedented in human history. "Dad, you're on TV again!" the boy exclaims, thrilled by the amazing achievement. After all, he is considered the best among all Japanese explorers. When asked what the top means, the father explains it's about being number one. With sparkling eyes, the boy imagines himself as number one. Filled with admiration, the son tells his father he wants to be incredible, just like him. Excitedly, the young boy declares he wants to reach the top someday too. His father encourages him, telling Noboru to aim for the top like a man should. He urges him to become a hero. And after that, a lot happened. They were supposed to go on great adventures together, promising incredible times ahead. This was a pure childhood promise, with the boy dreaming of being just like his father. Back then, he was always surrounded by friends, always the leader of the pack. At 12, he awakened his ability, a mysterious power in this new world. Abilities manifest on a person's 12th birthday, ranging from combat skills to everyday conveniences. These abilities have levels that increase with training, starting at level 1. The upper limit is uncertain, but it's thought to be around 10. Back at home, the young man sleeps soundly after an eventful day. This power, which would shape his future, was both surprising and incredibly convenient. When he awoke, he discovered his unique ability, skill collection. However, this special ability came with a major drawback. 15-year-old Noboru holds a magic stone, lamenting how little he has. After monsters are defeated, their bodies vanish, leaving behind these magic stones. The government buys these stones as an energy source, so he's told to be careful while collecting them. Then, he hears a familiar voice. "Is that really you, Noboru?" Suddenly, he's shoved or struck, a sharp pain flaring up. It's Kuzuno Kazuya, also 15, smiling strangely. When asked what he wants, Kuzuno taunts Noboru, asking if he's out digging for trash again. He mockingly adds that it must be tough for an elite to be picking up trash every day. Kuzuno explains that Noboru's skills are practically level 0. He jeers that Noboru has the weakest ability known to man. Asking how many skills he has, Kuzuno is surprised by Noboru's answer. The young man replies he awakened at 12 and has learned about 10 skills a day, totaling around 9,000. Kuzuno is stunned. 9,000 skills? Even the best explorers only have about 5. Then he asks, "So, Mr. Noboru, how strong are you with all those skills?" Kuzuno mutters, "That's what arrogant people get," and then walks away. Sighing with relief, Noboru pushes Kuzuno out of his mind. He needs to find the next enemy. He knows his ability is weak, but he won't give up on his dream. He remembers his father's words, his promise to aim for the top and become a hero. Just then, a blue monster appears. Perfect timing, he thinks. To reach the top, he needs to work hard, one step at a time. He notices more monsters approaching. Surprised by their numbers, startled, the young man scrambles to defend himself from the blue monster's attacks. "I won't lose," he thinks, as he acquires the swordsman and strike resistance skills. Exhausted, he barely wins. He's still a long way from the top, even with a combat skill to help. He analyzes the newly acquired skills, all that effort for just level 1. It feels like it was barely worth it. Then, he spots a shining jewel. He wonders if he should grab it to help him on his journey. Crouching down, he notices something odd. His curiosity piqued. Suddenly, he falls into a pit, crying out in pain, surprised by the trap. Hearing a distant scream, the young man's head snaps up. He knows he has to get there fast. He runs to help, worried about the danger, but he can't just leave someone behind. As he nears the source of the sound, the young man's face twists in pure horror at what he sees. Before him looms a giant bear, a dangerous monster from the 10th floor. He sees an injured girl on the ground and knows nothing can be done against a monster like that. Snapping back to reality, he notices something important. "Are you okay?" he asks. The girl replies, "Not really." She explains that a monster attacked her by surprise and injured her leg. When she asks for a healing potion, he tells her he doesn't have one, since he usually only stays on the 1st floor. He looks at her, wondering what she's doing here, but decides he'll handle the situation himself. She tries to convince him to run, but he refuses. He won't leave her behind. He looks at her, his expression serious and thoughtful. Then, as he walks, he remarks that a monster this strong would kill him instantly. Wanting to fight as well, she insists she can help, even if only a little. He smiles, explaining he was on the 1st floor, but fell straight down here through a trap. Laughing at his predicament, she asks if a trap like that is even possible on the 1st floor. Holding a knife, she promises to guide him to the exit if they can survive this. Thankful, she smiles and introduces herself. "My name is Suzugaya Shizuka." When she asks for his name, he replies bluntly, "I'm Takagami Noboru." Then she calls out to Noboru. "Let's go!" He simply replies, "Yeah." Remembering something, he calls out to Shizuka and asks if he can do something quick to help. Reaching out his hand, he tries to use a healing ability right then and there. Seeing this, the girl is surprised to see him use recovery magic on the spot. He explains the magic, saying its effect is weak, just enough to offer some comfort. Using a unique skill, he's able to learn magic that requires immense talent. However, with this weak magic, he can barely heal a light scratch. So, the magic is just for comfort, not truly healing him in this situation. She, however, disagrees and says she felt a little better with his help. Thanking him, Shizuka smiles at Noboru, who feels happy to have helped in some way. But then, the ferocious bear approaches, ready to attack again, startling them both. Realizing their break is over, they brace themselves, tense before the huge monster. "It's time," she announces, facing the bear, ready to fight with courage. With a "yeah," he gets ready, gripping his sword firmly for the battle. The bear charges forward, lunging at them with ferocity. Executing a double strike, Shizuka counterattacks, facing the bear with determination. Having dodged the blow, Shizuka moves quickly, leaving a trail of smoke. Seeing the bear's attack, she's startled by the immense force of the blow. Then, the bear attacks again with all its might, making a thunderous noise. Shouting her name, the young man shows his concern for the situation. Trying to buy some time, he throws a shining object toward the monster. Using a flash attack, he hits the bear, trying to distract it from the fight. Falling to the ground, he braces for the hit as the bear closes in. Then, he attempts a counterattack, aiming at the monster with all his strength. Feeling the impact, the young man screams in pain, but stays focused on the intense fight. However, he manages to hit the bear with his weapon, wounding it. Screaming in pain, the bear roars loudly, feeling the blow land. But seeing an opportunity, Shizuka charges forward, ready to strike the monster. Unleashing a powerful attack, she strikes the bear swiftly with her blades. Finally, the bear is defeated, and they celebrate their victory, exhausted from the battle. Wincing in pain, Noboru flinches, and Shizuka asks if he's okay. Replying that he is, he says he's managing, despite his injuries. Seeing the furious bear, they realize they've just made it angry, which is a problem. Excited, Shizuka encourages Noboru to keep going, saying they'll kill it anyway. Attacking together, they strike the bear, exchanging swift and precise blows. Just then, Noboru is hit, and Shizuka screams his name, worried about her friend. With difficulty, Shizuka tries to strike the bear again, showing her resilience. Feeling the pain and the bleeding, he wonders if this is his limit, thinking about what to do. Then, an image of Kuzuno appears, questioning if this was really his limit, just collecting useless skills. Meanwhile, the bear prepares to attack with full force, showing its fury. Warning Noboru, Shizuka yells for him to run, trying to save him from the situation. Lying on the ground, Noboru seems to be in his final moments, his face battered. Accepting the end, he smiles, thinking he's reached his limit on this journey. But, opening his eyes, he shows a determined expression, his posture changing. With a no, he gets up, ready to fight back and see the battle to the end. Remembering his father, he thinks that if he just keeps moving forward, one day he'll reach the top. So he decides he won't give up, no matter how small the step. With a never, he refuses to give up, attacking the bear with his sharp sword. Continuing the fight, the young man stays focused, determined not to stop there. Leaping into the air, he prepares for a final blow, aiming at the monster below. His face bruised, he acquires new skills, fear resistance, and indomitable. Reaching out, he grasps a light that appears, signaling a new power. At that moment, a skill counter hits 10,000, unlocking a supreme acquisition. Seeing this, Shizuka and the bear are stunned, not understanding what's going on. Floating in a blue space, he observes rings of light around him, confused. With vacant eyes, he finds himself facing a choice as something grand approaches. Facing the options, he must select a new power, one that will take him further. Reaching out his hand, he makes his choice. Clear determination on his face. Choosing something even higher than the top, something beyond extraordinary, he ascends. Returning to the battle, he emerges with a new power, ready to attack with full force. With a confident smile, he reveals his supreme power, the strongest and most unparalleled. Activating the supreme skill, Batsuzan Kaisei, he consumes 100 skills to do so. Then, he unleashes a powerful blow, demonstrating the strength he has acquired. With this new skill, Batsuzan Kaisei Level 1, he enhances his physical abilities. Using the strength of the summit, he attacks with everything he has, aiming at his opponent. The impact shatters the ground, showing the devastation of the young man's strike. Tired, he observes the destruction, taking a deep breath after the attack. Having overcome the challenge, he smiles, and Shizuka calls out to him, impressed by his action. Lying in the deep hole, they are both exhausted, but the battle is finally over. Checking Noboru's breathing, she realizes he's alive, thankfully. However, she looks around, noticing the enormous crater he created. Thinking to herself, she says that not even hero-class explorers could destroy a dungeon like that. Calling out to Noboru, she looks at him seriously, wanting to understand the situation. Observing him, she says that to use a skill like that, he must be someone special, demanding to know his true identity. Near a dungeon, a crowd gathers, watching the portal that has opened. Addressing the crowd, an agent announces that the tremor has stopped, but requests an evacuation for safety. Observing the scene, another agent thinks to himself that the subdimensional dungeon was shaking. A worried woman considers the possibility of a powerful monster rampaging inside. The agents murmur among themselves, commenting that they've never heard of anything like this. Just then, someone emerges from the dungeon entrance, carrying another person. Both are injured. Feeling weak, the injured person laments having reached the exit, but something went wrong. Still being carried, the injured person looks up and wonders what all this means. The scene changes. The injured person wakes up in a dark room, feeling a slight pain. Jumping up quickly, the young man shouts, asking where he is, startled by the situation. Sitting beside him, Shizuka says he's awake and asks how he feels, mentioning his wounds have healed. Shizuka then recalls that he glowed and used an incredible ability to take down a killer bear. Shocked by this information, the young man can only ask what she's talking about, trying to process everything. Thinking about what happened, he wonders if he really has such a power, but feels like he did something before that. Realizing he doesn't remember, Shizuka says he doesn't recall anything, and the young man apologizes. She tells him not to apologize, saying she wants to thank him because he saved her. He recalls that she blinded the bear and ended up injuring her arm. Then, she interrupts him with a smile and asks him to listen carefully. Taking his hands, she explains that his power saved them from death. However, she continues, looking at him as he listens in silence. Thinking about her words, he wonders if his actions were useless. Confirming it was a suicide mission, she points out that he didn't abandon her. She emphasizes that even though he was weak, he tried to save her until the very end. She adds that his rescue was incredible as well, and so she hugs him, thanking him and calling him her savior. Then, Shizuka reaffirms that he is, without a doubt, her hero. Returning the hug, he smiles and accepts her words. Saying her goodbyes, she mentions she needs to go home, and the young man says goodbye too. However, he realizes with a start that he didn't ask for her contact information. Lying down, he clenches his fist, remembering the words he heard. He throws a punch into the air and smiles, feeling a new strength growing inside him. Remembering his father, he wonders if he's become more like him now. Then, Shizuka's words echoed in his mind, giving him strength. The scene changes. A man was leaning against a wall, waiting. Running through the night, he realizes it's already very late to be heading back. Very worried, he picks up his pace, wanting to get home quickly. With his mother likely worried, he remembers his father disappeared before he turned 13. Regretting not having called earlier, he sees many missed calls. Just then, someone shouts his name, catching him by surprise in the middle of the street. Looking ahead, he spots a man standing in the middle of the park. Recognizing the man, he asks if it's Kuzuno, somewhat suspicious. Saying he's in a hurry, he tries to leave, but Kuzuno glares at him. Suddenly, Kuzuno attacks with a single blow, hitting him without any warning. Falling to the ground, the young man is shocked, feeling a powerful impact. Catching his breath, he yells, asking what Kuzuno is doing. Grabbing him by the collar, Kuzuno says he's delusional. Perplexed, the young man asks what delusions he's talking about, not understanding. Striking him again, Kuzuno asks why he was with Shizuka. Shocked, he wonders how Kuzuno knows her, unable to comprehend. Explaining the situation, Kuzuno says the Suzuyatani sisters are famous. Startled, the young man asks if he means the priestesses, completely astonished. Revealing more details, he says the priestess clan is composed only of women. Among them, the leader, Nodoka Suzuyatani, stands out for her strength and fame. Confused, the young man repeats the sisters' names, starting to connect the dots. Realizing the truth, he shouts that Shizuka is Nodoka's younger sister. Confirming this, Kuzuno questions why a failure like him is with the sister of someone so famous. Shouting that he rotted at the bottom, Kuzuno asks why he's trying to get back up. Then he yells that he needs to put him in his place and tells him to get ready. Frightened by Kuzuno, the young man tries to defend himself, questioning the illegal attack. Laughing, Kuzuno says it doesn't matter if no one catches him and strikes him again. Taking advantage of the empty city streets, Kuzuno continues his assault. Trying to scream, he feels his throat tighten, unable to make a sound. As he takes another hit, the impact resistance ability activates. Laughing, Kuzuno says he just experienced Silent Whip, level 2, warning him that he won't be able to scream. Kuzuno reiterates that he doesn't care about being caught. Shouting that this is where he belongs, Kuzuno lands more blows. Confident, the young man smirks, thinking about how to counter this attack. Just then, a new ability, Demolisher Power, appears at a super high level. Noticing his other abilities disappearing, he sees the new skill was activated by consuming the old ones. However, with his skill collection, he can acquire more and use them whenever he wants. Feeling the synergy, he activates the new ability, Brimming with Power. Exploding with energy, he stuns Kuzuno with a massive display of power. With a smile, he says it's time to return the favor. Feeling the energy, he realizes it's a super high-level skill. His consumption-based physical enhancement was at 80%. With that, he attacks his opponent with a powerful blow, moving quickly. Blocking the strike, he defends himself with agility, focused on the fight. Smiling, he tells his rival that won't work anymore. Suddenly, he prepares a strong blow and says it's his turn. His eyes widen at the situation, seeing the other's unexpected move. He hits his adversary, causing a huge impact and knocking him back. Looking at the scene, he shows his astonishment at the sudden event. Impressed, he wonders if all that was from just one hit. Analyzing the situation, he recognizes a super high-level skill. As he backs away, he declares he's no longer afraid of Kuzuno. The next day in the city, someone calls out to Noboru as he walks by. Greeting Shizuka, he explains he was already heading to the dungeon, despite what happened. Needing a break, he still has to meet his monthly quota after all. When the dungeons first appeared, the military fired on goblins but was ultimately defeated. Left unattended, dungeons allow monsters to escape, requiring combat hunters. That's why those who awaken combat skills at 12 start fighting at 15. Remembering the quota, Noboru says he needs more time to collect mana stones. Wanting to help, Shizuka offers, and he says he wants to test his new skill. Promising to keep it a secret, she invites him to go with her, and Noboru eagerly accepts. In the dungeon, Noboru reveals he's the son of Tsubaru Takagami, and wants to be like him. Shizuka says that her sister is someone special, and asks if he knows of Nodoka Suzuyatani. Shocked, he realizes he didn't know she was the sister of someone so famous. Laughing, Shizuka replies that she was the one who was more surprised, a slight smile on her face. Questioning, Noboru calls out to Shizuka, curious about her reaction. Explaining, she says she's also striving to be like her sister one day. She proposes a race to see who reaches their goal first, leaving him surprised. Even at a disadvantage, Noboru declares he won't lose to her. Watching him, she smiles, thinking it's just a trivial coincidence. He decides he'll give it his all, feeling closer to her after their conversation. Arriving at a spot in the cave, he asks her to step back a bit as he has something to test. Getting ready, he announces he's going to consume a skill now to proceed. Then he activates his skill, Mountain Toppling Might. Watching, Shizuka asks if anything different happened. Thinking it over, he realizes it's impossible without a skill to consume. Noboru thinks about using a skill on a monster, but Shizuka points out a nearby slime. Running to the slime, he says he'll be right back, while Shizuka wishes him good luck. With that, he acquires the sword technique skill, leveling up quickly. He won, but realizes the fight was tough without the high-level skill. Saying he did a good job, Shizuka had something else to add. Shizuka comments that he struggled a lot against the slime, but Noboru laughs, saying that's his real level. Determined, he declares it won't always be like this and decides to consume another skill. Again, he activates Mountain Toppling Might, and this time it works perfectly. However, he finds it strange, wondering if the skill was weaker than yesterday. With the skill, his physical enhancement level was at 20%. Shocked, he questions the 20%, thinking it was at 80 yesterday. At that, he scolds himself for not noticing the detail sooner. Shizuka watches intently, paying attention to his every move. Determined, he decides to investigate the relationship between consumed skills and the enhancement. While investigating, he discovered its duration was 1 minute, and that the enhancement rate overwrote the previous one. Fighting goblins, he realized the best way was to reactivate it before the time ran out. With this, he can stock up on skills for emergencies and adjust his strength. Happy, he realized his quota was met, which was much easier with the new skill. Thanking Shizuka for her help, She replied it was nothing and suggested they head back. They both excitedly celebrate their success in the dungeon. He attributes their success to Shizuka for acting as the vanguard. Thoughtfully, he reflects on the idea of getting stronger quickly. Since he was a child, he dreamed of being a hero, overcoming everything around him. Only by reaching such heights would he feel like he could finally catch up to his father. Reflecting, he feels his dream is more real with the new super high-level skill. Shizuka asks if he was referring to a heroic class seeker. Hesitantly, he says it's hard to be called a hero, and asks if she would laugh at him. Laughing lightly, she tells him she would never do that, leaving him at a loss for words. He explains that no one, besides his parents, ever took his dream seriously. Smiling, Shizuka promises she'll boast about being the first one to keep an eye on him. Cheering him on, Shizuka calls him a future hero, and he replies yes, he'll do his best. In the darkness of the cave, a red eye appears, watching them intently. Then, a giant ant-like monster appears, holding a sword. On his knees, he decides it's time. He had to face this menacing creature. Running with determination, he charges quickly toward the gigantic monster. Then, the fierce bear strikes downward, but he manages to dodge the brutal assault. On the ground, he readies himself, knowing the danger was imminent and great. Then, a confident smile appears on his face, a sign that things would be different now. Using a skill, he strikes the adversary, activating his power, mountain-toppling might. Acquiring a new capacity, he learns the skill Increased Durability at level 1. As he gets up, he realizes his skills continue to grow with the battle. Receiving more powers, he gains Bleeding Resistance and also Indomitable. Now, he announces he's consuming 10 skills to activate the mountain-toppling might force. With the power at 100%, his eyes reflect the monster's image. Preparing for the final attack, he wields his weapon with strong determination. Defeated, the bear lies on the ground as he observes the outcome of the fight alone. Jumping for joy, he shouts that he finally defeated the killer bear alone in the cave. Pleased, he announces that he's now a full-fledged seeker, having successfully reached his goal. Although he wants to say it was great, he feels his efficiency is still low. His power increases a lot, but his mastery drops. Yet he gets a super boost. Reflecting, he understands that mountain-toppling might makes it harder to learn skills. He wonders about testing the power with 2 or 3 boosts. He needed more tests. Happy, Shizuka congratulates him for defeating the killer bear all by himself, showing her joy. Pinching his cheek, Shizuka comments that he caught up to her too quickly. He thinks Shizuka should be this wonderful older woman figure to him, and she laughs half apologetically. Shizuka says she'll forgive him in exchange for a convenience store pudding, making him laugh. Suddenly, some rocks start to fall from the ceiling, causing a loud rumble. Falling to the ground, he takes the impact of the rocks, leaving Shizuka confused and unable to understand. Realizing what happened, a worried Shizuka approaches as he tries to call out to her. A large foot lands on the ground, signaling the arrival of something huge and dangerous in the cave. Plummeting through the darkness of the abyss, the two fall rapidly, unable to control their vertical descent. Lying on the ground, she complains that he fell too, and he asks where they are now. Then she questions the appearance of the trap, and he reveals he's been through this before. Staring intently, she points out that the floor trap might hide a much bigger mystery. But after hearing a loud call, he quickly urges her to investigate the area with him. Falling fast, one of them spots creatures and yells, warning about the insects while asking for a quick heal. Just then, someone calls for Noboru, and he answers that he's ready to act. Leaping to help, one of them says he's on his way, and the other tells him to use an attack there. Thinking he had bought potions, he hands one to the injured person, who thanks him and starts to recover. Next, the healer uses a minor healing spell, and the injured person reacts with a soft groan. Thanking them for the help, the healed person is told to thank the one who gave the potion. Then, they ask about Shizuka. While fighting, Shizuka assures them that the 3 of them are fine and tells Noboru to save his powerful skills. Understanding the warning, one character turns around while another points and reveals that more enemies are coming. Suddenly, a huge number of creatures appears, making the situation more tense and challenging. Quickly, the girl summons a wall of fire, blocking the enemy's advance with a burning barrier. Giving in to the pressure the firewall can't hold. Someone calls for help, but another person says they're busy. Smiling, a character says it's all right and asks Noboru if he can handle it. Confident, Noboru replies that of course he can do it and move forward. Noboru says there are too many, consumes 10 skills, and then activates the mountain strength attack. One of the insects gets hit by a fire attack, taking a direct hit and falling back. Unleashing a powerful blow, Noboru strikes several insects with blue energy and force. In position, Noboru performs a circular strike, quickly facing the insects ahead. Asking if he's okay, someone speaks with Noboru, who turns quickly to respond. Responding shyly, the pink-haired girl says that yes, she's all right. Noboru tells everyone to get back, saying he'll handle the situation alone now. Unleashing a powerful attack, the young man spins, creating a purple whirlwind. Forming a large vortex, the energy spreads out as others comment on his strength. Then, they ask if she's changed her preference, but the girl quickly denies it, surprised. Surrounded by red creatures, the young man seems to be in trouble, shouting in desperation. Realizing his time is up, he's surprised as the situation quickly gets more complicated. Just then, the creatures attack with full force, leaving the others worried about the scene. Saying he's not that cool, a friend is scolded and told they should go help right away. Arriving suddenly, a young woman says there's no need, asking if everyone is okay. Confirming that Haru took care of it, they decide to quickly finish off the remaining creatures. Activating their skills, they prepare a joint attack to end the battle. Breathing a sigh of relief, they realize all the creatures have been defeated. It was a tense moment. Thanking them for the rescue, the group explains they fell into a trap and asks where they are. Answering that they're on the 12th floor, the group then asks about the horde of monsters. Explaining that the monsters appeared out of nowhere, they say they've never seen anything like it. Finally, the man thanks them sincerely, saying they would have been wiped out without their help. He explains that the way the monsters appeared was abnormal, especially with injured people around. They accept the idea of returning to the surface, and Noboru says he wanted to go anyway. So, they decide to all go together, counting on the help of the group, who seem excited. And so, they all leave that place together, putting it behind them. Changing scenes to the outside, we see the Joey J045 building, a large structure. Reporting to someone, they explain the horde's attack and their fall into the pit. Filing the report, the attendant notes that these are special cases and thanks them for the information. Finally, the attendant says the evaluation of the stones is about to finish, and one of them gets excited. Questioning the split of the money, he asks if it's 50-50, but his friend tells him it's cool. Patting his arm, the friend shows support with an encouraging gesture. Warning him about greed, the friend says that stingy people end up alone, and he agrees. Announcing the evaluation is finished, the receptionist asks him to go with the branch manager. Surprised, he asks why, while his friend offers to go with him. Refusing the help, he says that would be too much, and that he'll go alone to see what they want. Watching him leave, his friends have a worried expression on their faces. Walking down the hallway, the young man follows the receptionist to an office. Stopping at the door, she announces that she's brought Mr. Takabashi for the manager. Replying from inside, the manager tells them to come in, and the door opens. Inside the office, the manager greets him, saying it's been a while, but the young man doesn't remember him. Explaining the situation, the manager apologizes and says he knew his father, then introduces himself. Shocked, he asks about his father, and the manager confirms the information. Mourning what happened to his father, he has a look of astonishment on his face. Remembering his father, who was the strongest, he recalls that he disappeared during an exploration. But changing the subject, the manager talks about the young man himself with a smile. They mention the rumor that he subdued an unknown, which surprises him. Explaining that many similar incidents occur, the manager says that almost everyone involved is annihilated. But then he showed up, and with the magic stones, they can now investigate the origin of the unknowns. Stating this is a great achievement of his, the manager asks if he wants to be the one to solve this. With this proposal, the manager says it will be a great achievement, a step toward his dream. Finally, the manager asks if he'll give it a try for the sake of his dream, which leaves him deep in thought. The scene shows Shizuka calmly holding a plate in the kitchen. Coming down the stairs, another person appears, entering the same room. Greeting him, the green-haired girl asks about the branch manager. Calling for Noboru, she waits for his explanation about the situation. Thinking about the proposal, he seriously considers accepting the new job. Questioning his decision, she asks if he still wants to be a hero. Saying yes, he confirms his old dream, agreeing with her. But something bothers him, and a memory suddenly appears in his mind. In a flashback, he sees a small bag thrown away and abandoned on the ground. Getting closer, someone picks up the object, seeming like it belonged to someone important. Putting the bag away, he thinks about returning it, showing his concern. Because of that, he makes up his mind, thinking about the past and his goal. Watching her friend, the green-haired girl becomes thoughtful for a moment. Then she suddenly hugs him, leaving him very surprised by her action. Explaining the reason, she says she was happy to see him being himself again. Touching his head, Shizuka leaves Noboru slightly surprised. Smiling, she offers to help, asking if that would be a problem. Excited, she says she would be angry if he did not ask for help, and he thanks her. Walking together, Shizuka says they will solve this case once and for all. 3 days later, Shizuka calls Noboru so they can solve the problem quickly. In another place, she talks with someone about her sister and a request. Thinking deeply, they find what is happening behind the scenes suspicious. While discussing it, she explains that the request can no longer be cancelled. Arriving at the dungeon, they hear that the entrance is restricted. Showing the documents, Noboru identifies himself alongside his partner. With the entry confirmed, they announce that they are entering the place. Heading toward the glowing portal, they prepare to go inside. Already inside the dungeon, he warns her about the traps spread around. Noboru reassures her, even though Shizuka is worried about her performance. Suddenly, monsters appear, and he notices that the creatures have grown considerably. Jumping forward, Shizuka asks Noboru to cover her. Defeating the monster, he proves that he was fine, just as he said. Hitting him on the head, Shizuka warns him not to show off too much. Questioning the place, she asks if the monsters are stronger than goblins. Agreeing with the idea, she suggests focusing on experience while saving his power. Thinking about helping, Noboru offers to go ahead if the enemies become stronger. Going down the stairs, the duo continues their journey through the dungeon. On the lower floor, Shizuka attacks a monster while Noboru supports her. Checking the map, he warns that they are still a little far from the destination. Studying the map, Shizuka approaches to see the remaining route. At that moment, she suddenly feels sick, and Noboru catches her while asking what happened. Suddenly, he gains poison resistance skills and questions why. Realizing the situation, he wonders if that was a trap. Damn it, he thinks, but he cannot finish the sentence. Shizuka collapses onto the ground unconscious while darkness spreads around them. Noboru feels his consciousness fading as he reaches out toward Shizuka. His hand and entire body slowly disappear until nothing remains. A hooded man appears saying everything went according to plan. Thinking about Noboru, he says the boy was careless, making the task easy. Moving his hand, the man seems to control something around him. The monsters gather together, and the man says he will take the body and the weapon. Passing through the monsters, he leaves them behind and continues walking. Looking ahead, he says the boy never knew who was controlling everything. With an evil smile on his face, he thinks Noboru easily fell into his trap. Darkness dominates the dungeon as the man moves forward. Waking up in the dark, the boy notices the darkness surrounding him. Trying to move, he quickly realizes he is completely tied up. A dark presence appears, and he asks who it is while demanding to be released. Stepping back slightly, the hooded man tells him not to be foolish. Realizing the trap, the boy becomes furious with the situation. Smiling slightly, the hooded man confirms the young man's suspicion. Enraged, the boy asks the reason behind all of this, searching for answers. Turning his back, the hooded man walks away and asks for a little patience. Turning back toward him, he says he will collect everything he can from the boy. Confronting him, the young man asks if this is revenge, but the hooded man ignores him. Curious, the hooded man asks an important question to the tied-up boy. Confused, the boy asks if the nightmare truly began a decade ago. Explaining further, the hooded man talks about the appearance of the dungeons. Showing several monsters, the hooded man reveals that they learned how to control them. Terrified, the boy cannot believe it, and the villain confirms that the monsters are under his control. Questioning the reason, he asks why they are attacking explorers like that. He states that they want to create superior monsters by feeding them rare human abilities. Pointing at the monsters, he says their strength grows rapidly, and asks if the boy understands what that implies. They reveal that they discovered a method to evolve monsters by constantly hunting and feeding the dungeon. Furthermore, their goal surpassed the power of ordinary monsters because they found a seed for it. With a sinister smile, the hooded man claims they achieved the infinite production of enhanced monsters. Laughing, the hooded man explains that these living weapons will bring them the power to dominate every world, but he corrects himself, saying they still have not fully reached that level. Because of that, the hooded man explains that the boy, with his special ability, is excellent food. Then, he says the conversation is over, and orders them to take the boy to the queen's chamber. With a defiant smile, the boy says he has heard enough while activating 3 powerful abilities. Shouting, he struggles intensely against the chair, desperately trying to free himself. Meanwhile, the hooded man watches from above while the monster approaches the boy. Fallen on the ground, the boy shouts that he will activate his strongest attack using all of his abilities. With disdain, the hooded man reveals that the boy already received a skill suppressor. For today, he will not be able to use any of his abilities. Trying to activate his attacks, the boy screams for them to move and activate already. With contempt, the hooded man watches the young man's pathetic attempt. Kneeling down, he watches the monster approach the boy. Striking him, the monster throws him away with great force. Shouting to be released, the boy begs it to stay away from him. Struggling desperately, the boy pleads for the monster not to come closer. Striking the boy again, the monster throws him against the wall. Lying on the ground, the boy feels intense pain throughout his body. Looking at the enormous monster, he questions what is happening. Pointing at the creature, The hooded man asks if the queen is magnificent. Refusing to become food, the boy tries to activate his abilities. With a smile, the hooded man says the effort is useless. Smiling slightly, he says he will make the boy suffer even more. Ordering them to bring the woman from before, the hooded man reveals his plans. Seeing the tied-up woman, the monster grabs her tightly. Shouting her name, the boy begs her to wake up. Waking up confused, she asks where he is while seeming disoriented. Looking at her tied-up body, she cannot understand what is happening. Terrified, the woman asks what that thing is while staring at the monster. Shouting, he tells Shizuka to run away, but she is immobilized. Explaining the reason, the hooded man says she also serves the dungeon. Ordering the queen to eat, the hooded man commands her to start with the woman's left leg. Shouting, the boy says he will activate his strongest attacks while trying to break free. The restraints glow and he fails to escape. Approaching him, the hooded man says he will teach him an important lesson. The hooded man reveals that the idea of a hero appearing only exists in stories. Being held down, the boy hears that reality is not a fairy tale. Wounding the boy's arm, the hooded man intensifies the pain. The hooded man welcomes him to his side. With a smile, the villain warns that this day will be the last of his life. With his back turned, he watches the monster devouring the woman. Eating the woman's body, the monster devours her completely. The boy watches in despair as everything happens before his eyes. With his hand covered in blood, he realizes that this is the reality of adulthood. Screaming for Shizuka, his blood-covered face shows deep despair. Just then, someone takes a heavy blow as another comments on an unexpected skill. The hooded figure mocks him, saying he can't use it properly. He takes more hits. He activates a costly ability, his body feeling like it's about to explode. His face is a mask of agony. Noboru lies bleeding on the ground, murmuring. A bloody hand comes into view. As he lies bleeding, he begs Shizuka to wait, surrounded by strange energy. Trapped by chains, he struggles to his feet, promising he'll save her from this. Watching the scene unfold, the shadowy figure remarks what a beautiful sight it is, promising more despair to come. The woman is in despair. Someone orders her to eat the arm, but she screams for them to stop. Screaming and covered in blood, he desperately drags himself forward, vowing to save her no matter what. He screams, vowing with all his might that he will save her. Below, another eye reveals a deep exhaustion. Lying on the ground and bleeding, Shizuka tells Noboru it's okay, begging him not to push himself. His face contorted in despair, he screams at Shizuka, asking why she's worrying about him now. Shizuka offers a faint smile, saying she's not sure why she's so worried. The scene shifts to the past. Shizuka remembers the day Noboru saved her from a dangerous situation. Lying bleeding on the ground, Shizuka says that maybe she just wanted to look a little cool. Her head is spinning and she can barely think straight, but at least this way, she doesn't feel any pain or fear. Noboru screams her name, trying to reach her, his anguish clear. With her last bit of strength, Shizuka murmurs his name, her face covered in blood. In a bored tone, the hooded figure says they've had enough of this charade. Then, he gives the order, devour the heart. Shizuka's eye is shown. Desperate, Noboru reaches out, screaming Shizuka's name, her body still bleeding. She asks him to always be the Noboru she knows. Suddenly, an intense power manifests, revealing a grotesque face. He reaches out, tears streaming down his face, a reflection of the moment's urgency. He screams, clutching his head in his hands, overwhelmed by everything. His body falls amidst visual glitches, as if being dragged away. A system message pops up announcing a super advanced skill. He wonders what to do now. Just then, a voice says, "That's not true," speaking directly to Noboru. With a determined gaze, he listens to the voice tell him that life is a very resilient thing. He recalls a conversation, remembering that someone can be revived even without their head. In a flashback, his father explains he wouldn't die from just losing his head, and the young boy is terrified. The boy begs his father to come back whole. Now, the man wishes he had a healing power at that very moment. Shocked, he wonders about a supernatural healing boost as an energy gathers in his hand. As he rises, he cries out for a power to restore life and make the body whole again. He urgently pleads for that power, desperate to save Shizuka. As the creature advances, he resolves to master the 1,000 skills in time. Screaming, he activates the Sanchi Suime ability, unleashing a powerful golden energy. With a cry of pain, he declares he will sacrifice his own future for this. Crying, he begs Shizuka to come back, reaching out his hand. The creature notices the glow, wondering what that powerful, mysterious light could be. Shielding his face, he turns to avoid the intense brightness. Crying hard, he raises his hand, feeling the pain of the moment. Realizing what's happening, she says his name. He screams hers back, "Shizuka!" Hugging her tightly, he repeats in relief, "Thank God, thank God." She wonders how it's possible. Realizing she's alive, she thanks him. "It's okay now," he says, comforting her. "Don't worry." He carefully helps Shizuka put on an item of clothing, his actions full of care. Shocked, an enemy in the background wonders about this power, thinking it's both impossible and unfair. He stands by her side, protecting her, his gaze fixed forward with grim determination. She explains that this isn't a fluke, but the result of everything he's built up. Surrounded by energy, he explains that his daily dedication is what saved them both today. His face, reflecting the golden energy, shows an expression of power and focus. Consuming a skill, he concentrates and activates the flying mountain power. He unleashes a powerful blow, striking the target with incredible force. In disbelief, the opponent staggers back, reeling from the impact of the incredible attack. He presses on, delivering another blow with fierce determination. Shocked, the enemy wonders how the queen was defeated in a single blow. Wiping the corner of his mouth, he asks if his opponent is finally ready to fight. Then he declares, "Now, it's our turn," and takes a battle stance. Shocked, he asks what she is, remembering how she healed a nearly dead woman before. Screaming, a hooded figure says everything is ruined and demands they kill that guy right away. Still motionless, one of them says he can't move, but another one assures him he'll take care of it. Preparing an attack, a strange creature powers up, ready to join the fight. Advancing, the monster closes in on the small human, who prepares to counter the threat. Unleashing a powerful blow, the young man strikes the creature, aiming for a decisive impact. After taking the hit, the creature reacts with surprise and fury at the attack. Calmly, he says he's going to step out for a while, leaving the situation resolved. Then, someone else asks him to finish off the enemies, saying they trust him. Landing multiple hits, the young man fights fiercely against the creatures without hesitation. In disbelief, the hooded figure says this can't be real, that it's a nightmare. Now on the ground, kneeling, he asks if this is the end, exhausted from the intense battle. With an intense glint in his eyes, he shows there's only one way left to win. Approaching steadily, he looks at the hooded figure, who screams for him to stay away. Desperate, the hooded figure begs for forgiveness repeatedly, pleading not to be killed. Asking what the hooded figure is saying after everything, he questions the apology. Clenching his fist in anger, the young man remembers what the hooded figure did to him and Shizuka. Screaming that he'll never forgive him, the hooded figure desperately begs for help. Next, he prepares a final blow, ready to deliver his retribution to the enemy. Interrupting the action, Shizuka throws herself in front, pleading for the young man to stop. Astonished, the young man asks Shizuka why she's protecting someone like him. Shaking her head, she says she has no intention of protecting that guy at all. Recounting what happened, she says he almost got her devoured by monsters and there's no forgiveness for that. Confused, he then asks what the real reason for her being there is. Shizuka reveals her true reason. She didn't want him to become like this. She warns that if he kills the hooded man now, he'll change for the worse. Understanding his anger, she says that if he can't forgive, she'll carry the burden with him. Holding his hand, Shizuka asks him to share the weight of the decision with her, together. Looking at her, the young man just says Shizuka's name, lost in thought. Saying she won't get in the way anymore, she steps back, while the hooded figure looks on in shock. Thoughtfully, the young man closes his eyes, his hand in a fist battling his feelings. Then, releasing his anger, he unleashes a blow into the air, missing the enemy in front of him. The force of the blow is so great it causes a massive explosion on the spot. Lost in thought, the young man says he doesn't want to stain Shizuka's hands with blood. Smiling slightly, the young man thinks it was the best decision, thanking Shizuka. He then touches her hand, showing his gratitude for her support in that moment. Calling his name, Shizuka hugs him, her warmth calming him down. He feels that her warmth is far more precious than the anger he felt, soothing his heart. The scene changes. In a room, a man comments that he understands what happened. Aware that a human controlling monsters was captured, he praises their work. Surprised, he questions why Madoka Suzutani, one of the best search specialists, didn't know about the incident. The man explains they were one step ahead, controlling the flow of information. Shizuka asks why they hid this, but he replies that they already know the answer. Asking if they knew a human was behind the monsters, she questions the risk they put a rookie in. Then, the man diffuses the situation, explaining there were two reasons for the decision. He mentions that Noboru had a trick to repel enemies, which surprised everyone. Even so, the man says Noboru exceeded expectations, revealing a hidden power. He then admits his judgment was correct, but he underestimated the enemy's cunning and apologizes. In a lighter scene, one of them begs them to stop, claiming he only wanted to reduce the number of victims. After everything, the person extends a hand, saying there will be no more victims there. Feeling relieved, Noboru gets a tap on the shoulder and gives his sincere thanks for the help. The scene shifts to the manager's office, where they're told the request was completed with a bonus. The manager thanks them profusely, telling them to rest while he handles the paperwork. Realizing the situation, the man gives a mysterious smirk. Meanwhile, he prepares to finish his own work, enveloped in an energy. Changing to a cell, the man in white asks if this is an interrogation, refusing to answer. Pointing his finger, the man with glasses declares there's no need for a lawyer here. Next, a bomb rat appears on his pinky finger, created at a cost. Seeing the creature, the man in the cell screams in terror, his desperation clear. With a final move, the small, glowing rat self-destructs, carrying out the threat. A violent explosion blows the door off its hinges, catching the nearby agents by surprise. An agent runs to help the manager, who says he's fine and explains about the bomb creature. The manager then states he needs medical attention for an injury from the blast, as the others listen. Walking up the stairs, the manager advises that the others will need more skill for the next mission. Surprised by the situation, Noboru then hears the question, his gaze remaining sharp. Calmly lighting a cigarette, the manager then mentions Subaru's name, scanning his surroundings. Questioning the queen's loss, Morose calls it a bad joke and receives an apology for what happened. Showing his hand, he comments that it's a harsh way to put it. The hooded figure shows disappointment in the queen he developed, finding her accomplishments lacking. Then, an intense eye appears, revealing a powerful expression in his gaze. Denying the situation, he says the queen lost, and he had to work hard to cover it up. Admitting it was unexpected, he wants to know which seeker was responsible. He recalls the report, surprised to learn that 2 seekers were involved. He questions if the queen fell to just 2, then confirms that the selection process was very strict. With a sweaty face, he reveals one of them was Shizuka Suzuyatani, Nodoka's sister. The hooded figure asks about the sister Atlas is watching, questioning her use as bait. He explains that she was just along for the ride, and the real bait was Shinji Takagami. Sarcastically, he calls the bait useless, but wonders if the boy awakened after defeating the queen. Turning to Morose, he mentions an additional report from Maya and apologizes for the trouble. Wielding his sword, a young man prepares a strike as a message notifies him of a new skill. Fallen to his knees, he receives a notification that the skill has been nullified, frustrating the young man. The skill Sanshi Suime, which instantly heals serious injuries, was mentioned. However, in exchange, he can no longer learn new skills, which explains the difficulty. Fortunately, his previous skills didn't disappear, but he questions their usefulness. If he loses everything, he won't even be able to defeat a slime without Batsuzan Gaisei. He wonders how long it would take to learn 1,000 skills from slimes and goblins. Imagining a game, he wished for monsters with lots of XP that could teach multiple skills. Sighing, he decides to stop running and go after the next monster. Suddenly, Shizuka appears, calling out to Noboru, happy to have found him. Surprised, he asks if she was looking for him, since she could have just called. She says she had a feeling he'd be there, so she came in person. Noboru denies that he didn't want to see her, but he's interrupted before he can finish his sentence. Seeing a sandwich, Shizuka laughs and says there's progress, and that someone wants to meet him. Shocked, Noboru asks where he's supposed to meet this person, looking confused. She says it's better to talk alone and asks if he'll go with her to the priestess's house. Noboru agrees to go, so they start walking. Arriving at the location, a woman greets Shizuka, assuming she brought her boyfriend. Blushing, Shizuka denies he's her boyfriend and is told there's no need to be embarrassed. Introducing herself as Nodoka, Shizuka's older sister, Noboru also awkwardly introduces himself. Nodoka says they have a lot to talk about, so she asks them to go somewhere else, and he agrees. Watching the situation, Shizuka seems a bit uncomfortable, her cheeks flushed. Noticing the difference, Shizuka comments that Noboru acts differently around her, but he denies it. Telling the truth, he reveals he bought her photo album, leaving Shizuka shocked. Excited, Nodoka asks if she should autograph the album for him, making the boy even more thrilled. Overjoyed, he thanks her profusely, while Shizuka just watches the scene, looking thoughtful. Stopping at a door, Nodoka informs him that the room is right there, and someone is waiting for him. Thinking about the person, he wonders who could be waiting for him inside that room. Opening the door, he enters and politely announces his presence, anticipating the meeting. Surprised, Noboru finds a few people inside. The cheerful blonde man got an autograph and then approaches one of the women. Asking to take a picture, the blonde man shows off between the 2 women. With a smile, he's known as the American hero. Then he starts flirting with one of the women, leaving her quite surprised. Lying on the sofa, the woman asks what's going on, wanting to know the details. Speaking to Nodoka, he asks her not to get angry, explaining the situation. Seeing her irritation, he continues to explain their activities there. Smiling, he reveals himself as Lucius Silverheart, a new and powerful hero. Introducing himself, Lucius Silverheart seems to be an experienced and very direct explorer. Talking to her sister, she asks what all of this means, not understanding anything. Then, he properly introduces himself as Lucius, a hero-class explorer from America. Noboru Takagami introduces himself, saying it's a pleasure, while the woman introduces herself as Shizuka. Thanking him, she bows before Noboru for having saved her sister, even at great risk. Promising to never forget, she praises Noboru's act, while Lucius looks amused. Shocked, the woman overhears the conversation about the meeting, showing her surprise. Asking about the relationship, she sees her sister pull Lucius away, who who is supposedly just a colleague. The two continue talking, saying he doesn't even know how many lovers he has. Then Lucius suggests a man-to-man talk with Noboru, who agrees. By asking, he discovers that Noboru is the son of Subaru Takagami, an old acquaintance. Reflecting, Lucius remembers it's been 10 years since that incident with Noboru's father. Then, Subaru-san appeared and saved his group in the dungeon, a true hero. Recalling his appointment as America's second hero-class explorer, he remembers Noboru's father. Lucius says he's never seen such a powerful skill, erasing the north with the power of ice. Noboru then comments that he's never seen such a powerful activation, impressed by the story. Satisfied, Lucius thinks he's being respected by someone so amazing, as he sips his tea. Looking at his father's image, Noboru proudly thinks that his dad is truly incredible. Continuing the conversation, Lucius decides to give Noboru some advice, out of respect for his father. He said that regarding the disappearance case, Noboru should stay away from the investigation. Confused, Noboru questions if he should stay away, since he just got caught up in the middle of it. Laughing, Lucius asks if he doesn't want to solve the case to earn his hero certification. Nodoka gets angry, stating she heard nothing about this and questions her sister. They discuss their different perspectives, as Shizuka's story doesn't match what he thought. Then, he explains again that similar incidents have occurred in America and England. He says this case will be his big chance to become a hero, since he's involved. Shocked, Noboru thinks about being a hero, remembering his father's words. Analyzing the situation, Noboru thinks it's not a good idea. He agrees that he survived and defeated an enemy leader, but Lucius considers him weak, saying an inexperienced person will die in a trap, as the enemy has prepared more thoroughly. Lucius recommends that he rest and wait for the case to be resolved without getting involved. Thinking, Noboru realizes that what Lucius is saying actually makes sense. Recalling his father's voice, he knows he needs to improve his skills to be a hero. Then, the woman interrupts, saying that Lucius is a bad judge of character. Perplexed, Noboru asks if it's really Shizuka talking to him like that. Smiling mischievously, she asks him what he means by that. The woman explains that Lucius is being arrogant by making decisions without checking the facts. She suggests that Noboru have a mock battle with Lucius, taking advantage of the opportunity. She explains she didn't like seeing Noboru being made fun of, which is why she suggested it. She says Noboru has saved her many times, so he deserves respect. Looking at Lucius, she says that no matter how incredible he is, Noboru shouldn't be looked down on like that. She states that Lucius is a renowned hero, but Noboru is the greatest hero to her. Holding Noboru's hand, she encourages him, and he decides to aim for the top. Facing Lucius-san, Noboru challenges him with a look full of determination. In the reflection of his eye, she sees Lucius determined not to get involved in the case. Then Noboru challenges him to a simulated battle, wanting to gauge his own hero level. Lucius smiles, noticing Noboru's serious expression, and accepts the challenge. With a grin, Lucius accepts the challenge, ready for what's next. Lucius thinks about showing him the true peak, the pinnacle that Noboru is striving for. Then, one of the fighters asks if they're actually going to use a real sword. Wielding the sword, the warrior thinks the silhouette doesn't suit him. While one worries, the other assures him that his sword won't hurt him. Confident, he declares that his opponent's sword will never reach him. Seeing the taunt, the other fighter reacts with clear irritation and anger. Thinking about what happened, he realizes his rival wasn't mocking him. Fallen, he reflects on his adversary's power, considering the natural difference. Getting up, the warrior gets ready and says he's prepared to fight. Remembering the past, he thinks about how he can't just leave things as they are. Charging forward, he unleashes a swift strike with his sword. Easily, the opponent dodges the blow, praising his fighting spirit. With a smile, the rival laments his lack of strength, speed, and technique. Then, he delivers a blow that hurls the warrior away with great impact. Injured, he acknowledges his shortcomings and decides to activate a powerful ability. Then, he yells that he's not holding back anymore, concentrating all his strength. Surprised, the opponent notices a change in the warrior's strike. With his sword glowing, the fighter thinks he needs to give it his all now. Focused, he ignores the future and concentrates only on winning this confrontation. Thinking about his rival's change, the opponent realizes he's now using his real power. Despite his adversary's strength, the warrior still holds his ground. Advancing quickly, he attacks the opponent. The opponent tries to defend himself. Changing his strategy, the rival tries to freeze the warrior's movement. Despite the challenge, the swordsman thinks he still hasn't reached the hero's level. Still, the adversary admits he was forced to use an ability. Determined, the warrior resolves not to stop fighting, maintaining his stance. As the challenge continues, he focuses on overcoming his limits without giving up. Then, he lunges forward, delivering a strike against his opponent. Thinking of his path, he felt power envelop his body. It was all to reach the top. After a powerful blow, one of them scolds the other, calling him a fool right then and there. Scolding her friend, she asks the reason for his recklessness and tells him to deactivate the ability. Observing the scene, one of them calls out to Lucius, who tells them to move on as he's seen enough. Elsewhere, someone asks how the boy his sister brought along did. Remembering the boy, he thinks about his impressive ability if he could just maintain that state. Then, someone congratulates the boy, saying he did well. When asked who he is, the boy says he's a challenger to everyone. Understanding the situation, the man comments that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. One of them calls out to Lucius, who tells him to forget what he was about to say. Then a character, changing the subject, calls for Noboru. Because of the fight, they want to know more about the ability he used earlier. Noboru then begins to explain everything about his ability to them. Understanding the ability, one of them realizes it combines others, but its cost is temporarily locked. Discussing the situation, they warn him to consider the consequences. Even though he was provoked, he needs to be more careful. Admitting his mistake, he says he doesn't regret it, as it was a unique opportunity. Stating his goal, he says that life is a challenge, and he's aiming for the top. Observing the situation, they fell silent for a moment. Curious, one of them asks if what he heard was true. Understanding their point of view, he shows that he gets it. Reflecting on the matter, he decides to share his opinion. Warning that he's lost his combat power, he says his friend needs to act fast since he can't run. Then, with a limited time offer, he promises to help him recover his lost power. Surprised by the proposal, the others express their astonishment at once, telling him he should feel honored since his friend would be joining the hero's group. Lucius is then called by one of them, who grabs his arm. Asking if it's true, the girl says she won't forget his recklessness, even if he did help her sister. Commenting on the unstable ability, he says the boy has the most important thing for an explorer. Curious, she asks what the most important thing would be. Mentioning the will to move forward and not fear challenges, the man touches his head, waiting for him at the top. He comments that the boy will reach the top, but now it's his turn to guide. Calling out to Lucius, the girl seemed surprised by his words. She observes her friend, noticing a different expression on his face. Lucius asks if he's charmed her again, but she refuses, saying her schedule is full. Then, pulling Noboru along, Lucius decides they need to go to the dungeon right now. Realizing he's gone, the others comment that Lucius does whatever he wants, but Shizuka should tell them more. She says he wasn't her boyfriend, but there was no way to avoid the commotion. She talks about his use of the pronoun, teasing her sister, who complains about the nickname. Wishing him good luck, she watches Noboru, who seemed determined as he left. And so, Noboru walks away from his friends, ready for his next challenge. Inside the dungeon, a character asks if the place is good for training, noticing the space. Explaining further, the other says it's about fighting without skills, which seems strange at first. He goes on, warning that mastering skills requires something else, a different kind of combat. Hearing this, the apprentice gets confused, with many questions about this new way of fighting. Just then, a little monster appears, perfect for the master to demonstrate the mysterious and effective technique. Getting ready, the master activates his sword and tells the apprentice to watch very carefully. Unleashing a swift strike, he attacks the monster, showing an impressive mid-air move. Showing total focus, the master finishes the attack with a very determined expression, staring straight ahead. After it's all over, the master asks how the strike was, and the apprentice still seems a bit thoughtful. Then, the master smiles and offers to explain everything properly, noticing his friend's confusion. Revealing the sword, he explains that he covered the blade with ice, avoiding actually hurting the monsters. Detailing the technique, he shows that he used magic only as a medium, not as the main attack. With that, the apprentice understands the explanation and is greatly surprised, absorbing the new knowledge. Excited, the apprentice agrees as they both laugh, satisfied with the complete understanding of the situation. Understanding now, the character feels motivated, realizing he was wrong about his skills. Focused on the challenge, the apprentice looks at the mountain, thinking about how to get even stronger. Suddenly, a huge monster appears, and both characters are startled by its unexpected size. Then, the master says the next opponent has arrived and tells the apprentice to try fighting alone. Leaping, the apprentice attempts an aerial strike, but the attack seems to have no effect on the monster. Thoughtfully, he realizes he forgot something important, which makes him a little apprehensive. Still in the air, the apprentice tries another strike, but the monster prepares to retaliate, staying alert. Sensing the situation, the monster reacts, and the apprentice realizes his skill neutralized itself. Worried, the apprentice tries to stop the monster, which catches the sword with its mouth, showing its agility. Thrown far away, the apprentice takes the impact as the monster hits him with force. On the ground, the master asks what happened and says he should have been able to defeat the monster normally. Sitting on the ground, The apprentice explains that he doesn't have any skills to use at the moment. Seeing the situation, the master realizes he'll have to start looking after the apprentice closely, slicing the monster. The master reinforces that it will be rigorous training, and the apprentice agrees excitedly. And so begins the special training with Lucius, even with a somewhat disastrous start. A month later, in the city, he takes a deep breath, feeling that day's training was really tough. After so much training, he managed to pay off his debt, and now he can learn skills again. Smiling, he realizes he's getting stronger, even if the progress is simple. Feeling happy, he smiles, feeling a light breeze and a good mood coming from within. Thinking to himself, he remembers it's late and no time to get lost in feelings. Just then, the phone rings, catching the character by surprise and leaving him quite shocked. Looking at his phone, he sees a call from an unknown number and wonders who it is. Answering, he introduces himself and hears the person ask if they're speaking with Noboru Takagami. Confirming, the person on the other end, a priestess, asks about Shizuka and Nodoka. Startled, he says he doesn't know, and asks if something serious happened to his friends. The priestess explains that the two have been missing since morning, and they can't be contacted at all. Worried, the woman says they didn't mention any dungeon, fearing the worst. Thanking her, he says he'll search everywhere, accepting the request for help. Ending the call, he turns away, still thinking about his friend's disappearance. A bad feeling takes over, and he thinks about calling Lucius, just as a precaution. Checking his phone, he sees a new email. Surprised by the notification. Looking at the email, he wonders if Shizuka sent it, feeling apprehensive. The content of the email leaves him shocked, and he can't believe what he's reading. The email says the Suzuyatani sisters illegally entered a dungeon and asks him to go to the location. Shocked, he murmurs the names Shizuka and Nodoka, stunned by the situation. Annoyed, he realizes he has no choice but to go to the meeting. Before leaving, he remembers he needs to make some important calls, thinking about who to contact. Then, he remembers he needs to call the person from before and also Lucius to let them know everything. Still on the street, he calls his mom and tells her he'll be home late, apologizing for the delay. Running, he realizes he doesn't know what to do, but decides to move forward anyway. Finally, he runs through the night, giving it his all as he dashes through the streets, determined to find his friends. Arriving, someone informs the manager that they've brought Mr. Takagami to the meeting. Bursting into the room, a young man enters shouting, startling the girl who was there. Asking him to calm down, the manager tells Noboru not to be in such a hurry. But as Noboru tries to argue, he's quickly interrupted by the manager asking for tea. Then the tea is served and the situation seems a bit calmer. Beginning the explanation, he asks about a certain dungeon far from there. Knowing the place, Noboru remembers that a disappearance incident occurred there. Shocked, he realizes the connection to the case of the missing Suzuyatani sisters. Admitting it, the manager reveals that the sisters entered the dungeon without permission. Annoyed, Noboru discovers he was deceived about the entry permit. Knowing Nodoka, she used her fame to get in without any trouble. Taking responsibility for the failure, the manager acknowledges that the staff made a serious mistake. Apologizing, Noboru is consoled by the manager, who scolds him a little. Asking, the manager questions Noboru about his next actions. Responding firmly, Noboru decides he will find them and bring them back. With a smile, the manager grants Noboru permission to infiltrate the dungeon. Expecting results, the manager shows his confidence in Noboru once again. Arriving at the dungeon, Noboru finds himself in a dark place, unsure of what to do. Shouting, he tries to call out, asking if anyone else is there. Looking for Shizuka, he notices how silent and empty the place was. Making a decision, he heads deeper into the dungeon, hoping to find them soon. Going deeper, Noboru thinks he'd be scolded by Shizuka when he found her. On second thought, he imagines Shizuka would just be worried about him. Venturing further, Noboru realizes he's deep inside without finding anyone. Surprised, he senses the presence of a monster, ready to attack him. Dodging, Noboru evades a fatal blow and stays on guard. Noticing a movement, he turns to see what was happening there. Attacking, Nodoka appears with her precise strikes amidst many enemies. With red eyes, she appears to be in a state different from her usual self. Frightened, Noboru wonders what Nodoka was doing in that place. Dodging the blows, Noboru tells the person to stop immediately. Taking a cut, Noboru reveals his identity, saying it was him. Looking with her red eyes, Nodoka recognizes Noboru, Shizuka's friend. She was trapped, bound by threads. She realized it wasn't going to stop. Something was very wrong. The girl's condition worsened. She knew that at this rate, she was going to die. Springing into action, the girl used her skills to shatter her enemy's defenses. Then, a man attacked with full force, striking his opponent with a powerful blow. Turning her head, The woman revealed her red eyes as she prepared for what was next. A massive impact followed, blowing up everything around and causing widespread destruction. Unleashing a swift strike, he spun across the battlefield, mercilessly hitting his enemy. Panting, he stared at his bleeding hand. He had done it, but there had been no other choice. Fallen on the ground, the girl lay motionless as someone asked if she was all right. Approaching the fallen woman, the young man said he was glad she was alive and asked if she was okay. As she bled profusely, a dark aura quickly began to envelop the wounded woman. His eyes wide, the man realized how tense the situation was. He didn't know what to do. Taking multiple hits, she tried to defend herself, but knew she would be defeated anyway. Seeing the woman in danger, the young man looked desperate, unsure of what to do. Freezing her surroundings, the woman unleashed her power. Her red eyes locked on the enemy. Arriving on the scene, a man with light hair realized he had gotten there just in time to help. Looking at the young man, he asked why he was there after he'd sent the message. He asked what was going on, but said he wouldn't understand even if she explained, because she had attacked him. Striking swiftly, the woman attacked the man's sword. Her eyes locked on him. As the man fell, he remarked on the girl's impressive power, asking if she was herself or some kind of demon. The two clashed, trading intense blows as their powers collided. Knowing they understood each other with just a glance, the man prepared to attack. Looking at the woman, he told her to say what was going on. Her face was covered as if she were hiding something, a red glint in her eyes. The man turned, not understanding the situation, trying to solve the mystery of the woman. He realized the reason for her secret. She didn't want to be seen in this state. Knowing what had to be done, the man declared he would stop her, telling the other to stay back. The man said the dance was over and ordered the young man to leave. Preparing his strike, he expanded an ability, activating a third power level. Using his magic, he increased his power, reaching the 6th level, his hair flowing wildly. Channeling his power, he spoke of a silver embrace and eternal peace. Then, he unleashed a powerful attack, freezing everything around him with an overload strike. Trapped in the ice, the woman seemed to be in pain, her red eyes staring ahead, her face covered in frost. The woman remained motionless. Looking at the woman, he said he'd save their kiss for later and wished her a good night. Encased in ice, the woman was frozen solid as he whispered her name. Staring at the ice formation, one of them wonders in awe if this is the power of a hero. Then, the guy with glasses explains he activated level 3 of his ability, expanding its effect. They remark that it's not just freezing, but cryostasis, a temporary procedure that lasts for 3 days. The character explains he only froze her, but he still needs to find the person behind the mind control. He then thinks that finding the culprit is the top priority, as the other guy falls below. They quickly realize the enemy has set an ambush, and now they're completely surrounded. He calls for backup, while the other activates an overwhelming power ability. Charging forward, he unleashes a powerful blow, making the ground tremble with its intensity. While one acts as a decoy, they relentlessly freeze the enemies that appear. Panting heavily, the character feels the strain of the battle. He then realizes his magical power is reaching its limit, worried about the situation. They warn him only 3 are left and ask if he can hold on. He replies that he can, because he's a hero. Remembering his purpose, he thinks about being a hero, saving lives no matter the cost. Holding his sword, he vows to meet expectations, ready for the next part of the plan. Flying through the air, he rushes forward, leaving a trail of blue energy in his wake. Lucius celebrates the victory, saying they got them all, thinking the confrontation was over. Suddenly, Lucius is struck by an unexpected blow, feeling immense pain. Noboru screams Lucius's name, realizing something is terribly wrong. His eyes wide, Noboru asks who's there, recognizing a familiar face. The newcomer, Kuzuno, remarks that Noboru is fine even if exhausted, and cushioned the fall. Seeing the situation, Lucius warns that the title of hero isn't just for show, and questions Kuzuno's strength. Kuzuno ignores the warnings and points at the hero, saying he'll be first. Noboru feels targeted, while Lucius ironically comments from the ground that it's hard to be popular. Getting up, Noboru announces he'll fight with Lucius, refusing to just stand by and watch. Kuzuno asks if they're going to fight 2-on-1, calling it cowardice. Smiling sarcastically, Kuzuno says that if that's how it's going to be, he has a plan. With a swift movement, Kuzuno charges forward and lands a blow, showcasing his strength. Kuzuno tells Noboru to shut up and wait, saying he'll deal with him later. With no other choice, Lucius asks Noboru to protect the others, accepting the situation. Kuzuno asks if they're done talking and lunges forward, starting his attack. Lucius feels the impact of the blow, remarking on the attack's incredible power. Dodging another strike, Lucius notes this is no ordinary enemy as he resists his attacks. Kuzuno claims to be the chosen one, but Lucius asks, confused, who chose him. Kuzuno prepares another strike, and Lucius dodges again, sensing the attack's intensity. With wide eyes, the villain observes the scene, analyzing his opponent's condition. Lucius reads the enemy's counter but still gets hit, bravely withstanding the blow. Lucius, however, challenges the villain, asking if that's all he's got, belittling the enemy's strength. Even at his limit, Lucius thinks it's not over yet, feeling his magic power is nearly depleted. Still, he tries to pull himself together, determined to keep fighting. Kuzuno attacks with a python whip, demanding that Lucius die already. At that moment, Lucius braces himself, knowing it's time to act. Kuzuno readies the final blow, a furious look in his eyes. Lucius is hit, spitting blood, but refuses to give up. He insists it's not over, planning to squeeze out every last drop of his remaining magic. Kuzuno laughs sarcastically, saying Lucius scared him for a moment, but the fight goes on. Unleashing the final blow, Kuzuno proclaims that this time, the fight is really over. Lucius takes the full impact of the attack, crashing to the ground, visibly injured. As Lucius lies on the ground, blood spreads across the ice around him. Desperate, Noboru screams Lucius's name and runs to his side. Begging Lucius to stay with him, Noboru hears the hero apologize. Lucius regrets not being able to reach the enemy and asks Noboru to handle the rest. With a determined look, Noboru faces the hero, taking in his final words. Taking on the responsibility, Noboru tells him he can leave it to him. Vowing to protect everyone, Noboru swears on Nodoka and Lucius that he will keep his promise. Looking at Noboru's back, Lucius recognizes the presence of a true hero. At that moment, Lucius collapses, deciding he'll rest for a while after the intense fight. Activating 30 skills at once, Noboru prepares to unleash his full power. With the mountain-crushing skill activated, Noboru asks Kuzuno if he's ready. Kuzuno scoffs at the question, saying the "Are you ready" line is his, and warns him not to brag about a lucky win. With his bare hands, Noboru charges forward, landing a powerful blow on Kuzuno. Furious at the bare-handed attack, Kuzuno questions Noboru's audacity for provoking him like that. With a war cry, Noboru rushes forward, delivering a rapid sequence of powerful strikes against his foe. Taking the hits, Kuzuno wonders about the strength behind them, stunned by his opponent's power. Questioning the situation, he asks how a failure like Noboru could be stronger than the hero himself. He explains it's because he's not alone. The others have made him stronger in battle. Thinking of Lucius and Nodoka, Noboru draws strength, using their memory as fuel. He yells that it's because everyone supported and believed in him, giving his all in the fight. Kuzuno tries to argue back, claiming it's a lie since he was there the whole time. Noboru shouts back that even so, he chose this path of his own free will without hesitation. Showing his determination, Noboru pushes forward with his choice. Grabbing the enemy tightly, Noboru prepares to deliver the final blow. With a direct hit to the face, Noboru finishes the combo, displaying his newfound strength. With a powerful strike, Noboru hits the enemy dead on, creating a whirlwind in the air. Seeing Kuzuno on his knees, Noboru notices another figure emerging from behind the injured opponent. They are both shocked, staring at the new figure who has appeared before them. Appearing between them, Shizuka startles everyone, and Noboru screams her name. Arriving on the scene, he's surprised to see someone holding Shizuka. He then asks what's going on, trying to understand the chaos. The man holding her then claims with a smile that Shizuka is already his woman. Seeing this, he demands they let Shizuka go immediately, or things will get worse. The man then extends his hand and orders Shizuka to fight him. As Shizuka prepares to strike, the young man screams for her to stop. Dodging an attack, he tries to get her to stop, but she doesn't seem to hear him. Even so, he's hit by a blow, feeling the pain and expressing his anger. Getting up, he says he's fine, claiming the wound is just a scratch. Realizing that talking won't help, he decides to get serious. Using a new ability, he unleashes a massive power, ready for the showdown. Seeing this power, the enemy tells Shizuka to protect him from the attacks. He then thinks about his opponent's tactics and the courage needed to press on. Telling her he'll never hurt her, he promises he won't let Shizuka blame herself. Confidently, he asks Shizuka to wait, because he'll save her soon. Even so, Noboru is surprised when asked why Shizuka didn't attack. Seeing Shizuka's failure, the enemy becomes enraged, ordering her to kill Noboru. Noboru is quickly struck by a blow, feeling a heavy impact. Getting up, he claims the last hit didn't really land and tells the enemy to get ready. Defeated on the ground, the enemy taunts Noboru, insisting that Shizuka attack him. Dodging the blows, Noboru declares that he's stronger now. He can no longer be hit. He then lands a hit on Shizuka, showing his determination in the fight. Looking at Shizuka, he stands his ground, signaling that things are about to change. Noboru then smiles at Shizuka, promising to one day match her in true skill. Taking something from Shizuka's hand, he apologizes for what he's about to do and throws the item away. Going back on the offensive, Noboru says it's his turn now, preparing to counterattack. The enemy questions his action, and Noboru replies that his last hit didn't hurt Shizuka. Focusing his power, Noboru unleashes a powerful strike against his opponent. Firmly, Noboru declares that Shizuka doesn't belong to the enemy, countering his arrogance. Filled with rage, the enemy shouts, refusing to be underestimated by Noboru. Shouting Shizuka's name, the enemy grows frustrated with the situation as Noboru takes a hit. Attacking with all her might, Shizuka surprises the enemy with a blow, leaving him confused. Wounded, the enemy asks why Shizuka attacked him, but Noboru explains it's due to her synchronization. The enemy then demands that Noboru give up and free Shizuka from her current state. Taking another hit, the enemy falls again, showing the fight is still going strong. Because of this, the enemy warns that he's done playing around. With a dark look, the enemy calls out to Shizuka, his intentions clearly dangerous. The enemy then orders Shizuka to kill herself if Noboru tries to attack her again. Noboru is shocked by the order, unable to believe what he just heard. Continuing, the enemy demands that Shizuka kill herself if Noboru moves or says a word. Smiling, the enemy dares Noboru to deactivate his abilities, wanting to see his despair. Pointing, the enemy says he didn't want it to come to this, but the situation left him no choice. Angry and in pain, Noboru complains he can't take it anymore, his body feeling heavy. Laughing loudly, the enemy mockingly asks whose fault all of this is. Landing a powerful blow on the enemy, Noboru yells, showing all his strength. Attacking furiously, the enemy blames Noboru for everything, feeling the heavy impact. Continuing the assault, he warns that the order was given, and Shizuka will follow it. Surprised, the enemy notes Noboru's resilience, finding him stronger than he thought. Wounded, Noboru begs the enemy to release Shizuka right now. With red eyes, Shizuka is still under the rival's complete control. Taking another hit, Noboru yells that he can't stand that look in her eyes anymore. Stopping the fight, the enemy orders Shizuka to finish the job. He then orders Shizuka not to stab, but to punch Noboru in the face. Shizuka then unleashes a powerful punch, hitting Noboru square in the face. Hit several times, Noboru bleeds, feeling the pain of each blow. Still, Shizuka keeps punching, with tears in her eyes. Because of this, Noboru thinks it's his fault for being arrogant. Smiling, the enemy announces that the time to end the fight has come. As Shizuka is ordered to kill Noboru, he hesitates to counter her. Holding the hilt of his sword, Noboru knows he can't use his abilities. Realizing what's happening, the enemy is shocked to hear Shizuka's voice. Crying, Shizuka begs Noboru to kill her and end her suffering. In shock, Noboru realizes that Shizuka's consciousness is returning. Enraged, the enemy decides to kill them both, no longer caring about the situation. Fallen on the ground, Shizuka and Noboru are injured, both badly hurt. Lamenting, Shizuka apologizes for what happened, tears in her eyes. Also wounded, Noboru calls out Shizuka's name, his voice choked with emotion. A sword pierces the ground in a single strike, marking the decisive moment of the fight. As their blood mixes, the two of them connect in some way. Acquiring a new ability, Noboru unlocks a high-level skill. Thinking about what happened, he regretted being controlled by someone in the end. He said he wished he had done better, and she agreed she felt the same way. He regretted not knocking out the enemy, realizing he was filled with nothing but regrets. Recognizing the path ahead, she said they still had a long way to go to evolve together. The scene changes. Noboru said he was glad he got to talk to her one last time. Looking sad, Shizuka apologized, but he immediately shut her down. Looking at her, Noboru asked for her name and said he wouldn't leave her behind. He asked if her ability only worked on one person and had a cooldown, and she confirmed it. Realizing that wouldn't work, he then came up with a clever and daring idea. He explained that if the healing was only for one, they would have to become one. Confused, Shizuka asked what he meant, but he denied any ill intent. He clarified that becoming one meant she had to accept him inside her in a specific way. He worried that after being controlled by the enemy, she might refuse. But then she took his hand. Looking into her eyes, he asked if she could truly trust him. Smiling, she told him to lead the way, and Noboru then called out her name. Focusing on their union, they vowed that her body would exist for him, transcending time. Manifesting his power, he shouted, activating his special ability. In a new scene, the dark cave revealed its interior. Fallen on the ground, he felt a sword strike pierce through his body. Stunned by the sight, he fell quickly, barely able to react. With a huge impact, he was thrown far away, flying through the air. Seeing the damage, he wondered if the armor could be fixed, but she said it couldn't. Back in the action, they prepared to finish what they had to do. Shocked to see them both, the enemy asked how they were still alive. To activate the ability, he said he needed to consume 10 of his own. Sensing his weakness, the enemy taunted him, but Noboru showed his determination. Standing his ground, he warned that he was there to fight too. Taking a surprise hit, the enemy was shocked to be attacked again. Amazed by the power, he asked if this was what Noboru felt. Confident in their power, He said they couldn't lose and would end it all. Outraged, the enemy screamed, not understanding why he was losing with so much power. He took another hit, then fell to the ground in great pain. Revealing the reason for the enemy's weakness, he stated it was because his power was exhausted. With the blade to the enemy's face, he said their strength came from another source. Explaining that their strength came from their union, she asked if she was right. Agreeing, he thought about his new ability, but decided not to explain everything. Frustrated, the enemy refused to accept defeat, unable to cope. Screaming in rage, the enemy questioned why it was always someone else, then declared it was his turn. In a fit of fury, he declared he didn't care anymore and would give it his all. Consumed by rage, he wanted to kill Noboru, letting fury take over his entire being. Noticing the drastic change, Shizuka warned that the enemy wasn't normal. Shocked by the hatred, Noboru said he had gone too far and that it was terrible. Looking at the transformed enemy, Noboru called him by his name. Thinking it all over, he admitted he hated his rival and didn't think he had done anything wrong. However, seeing the enemy in that state, he became thoughtful. Looking into the enemy's eyes, he couldn't remain indifferent to what he saw. He thought about using an ability, but without power, Noboru just gripped the hilt of his sword tightly. Shizuka held his hand and told him she would carry that burden with him. Noboru, in a close-up, had a serious but determined expression. In gratitude, Noboru called Shizuka's name, his voice filled with thanks. Activating a powerful ability, a huge attack froze everything around them. Arriving just in time, Lucius smiled, taking in his friend's situation. Seeing his companion, Lucius explained he was awake, but his power was barely holding on. He said Noboru was too young to carry that weight, so he would take it from here. Grateful, Noboru looked at Lucius, while Shizuka smiled by his side. Finding Shizuka, they decided to go back and contact the association to move the others. Lucius asked for support, since he hadn't recovered yet, so Noboru agreed and followed. Despite everything, the encounter was worth it, as he was an awakened. A star shone in the darkness, marking the end of the battle as silence fell. So, the young woman explains that her sister called her to a dungeon for a sudden emergency. She knew the rules. Elite explorers were called in, and sensitive information was kept secret to avoid panic. After gearing up, they entered Dungeon J10. But it was strange. There were no monsters along the way. No one has a record of the order, so they let it go, and the memories of being controlled have vanished. After being healed, her head felt much clearer. It was as if everything had been a dream. With a sad look, she apologizes for the situation. Watching the scene, the man says there's nothing they can do now. They wait for Nodoka to wake up and tell the rest of the story, revealing all the details. Wishing for Nodoka's recovery, he sincerely prays for her health from outside. Just then, Shizuka is suddenly called over by the door. When Noboru arrives, he's greeted and asked if the interrogation is over. Worried, Noboru admits that many thoughts are weighing heavily on him. Returning to the room, he tells his sister he's back. He thanks Lucius but says he doesn't mind, since he's doing what he wants to do. Wanting to be first, Lucius declares he will be the first person Nodoka sees. Lucius is called out for speaking so casually, but the worst part is, he's completely serious. Then, Lucius suggests Noboru should leave, since Shizuka was there to talk. Outside, the weather is pleasant, and the sunlight feels wonderful. Thinking about the situation, Noboru hopes that Nodoka and the others will wake up soon. Lucius reveals that he spent the last few days using all his connections to try and wake them up. He even got help from the acquaintance they met on that occasion. Through this, Lucius discovered something important. It wasn't hypnosis or brainwashing. However, they found a parasitic creature, never seen before, in their hearts and brains. It really wasn't a skill, but a being controlling their minds and actions. Luckily, Lucius put them in a low-temperature state to temporarily deactivate the parasite. However, its location is bad for surgery, leaving him completely powerless in this situation. But Lucius knows of one exception, asking if Noboru wants to heal Shizuka right now. Desperate, Lucius begs Noboru to heal Nodoka and the others using his ability. Lucius shouts that he'll pay anything and won't refuse any help. Lifting his head, Noboru says he feels the same way and wants to save everyone too. Shouting in defiance, he tells the other to start, but the young man warns there's a problem. Watching intently, the light-haired young man seems confused by the situation before him. At that, they ask Lucius if this is really the best option, and he replies that it might be the only solution. Recalling the past, he thinks about the penalty for his skills, realizing it's stronger than he imagined. Turning to his friend, the blonde man challenges him, telling him to attack without holding back. Accepting the challenge, the young man clenches his fist, showing he understood his partner's message. Then, moving quickly, the young man unleashes a powerful blow, landing a direct hit on his friend. The young man looks around, surprised by all the skills, and worries about Lucius after the blow. Worried, the young man asks about Lucius's condition, who assures him he's fine, thanks to many potions. Suggesting they stop, his friend warns it's dangerous, but Lucius disagrees, rejecting the idea. Even with the support, Lucius shows great strength, insisting he's more powerful than any monster. Thinking it over, he decides this is the best way, because protecting without saving is useless. More than that, he can't stand the thought of an insect near Nodoka, feeling such a strong love for her. Taking a deep breath, the blonde man smiles with determination, inviting his friend to come at him with everything he's got. Questioning Lucius, his friend asks if he'll fight back, and Lucius ponders the situation. Pleading to save Nodoka, the young man begs to carry this burden alongside Lucius. Looking surprised, Lucius lets out a small laugh, admitting he underestimated Noboru a little. With an intense glint in his eye, Lucius agrees to the plan, stating that the potions are on him. Then, advancing quickly together, the two of them run, ready for the intense battle ahead. Just then, the two clash with a powerful blow, releasing a massive amount of energy on impact. Facing Lucius in intense battles, his friend healed the injured with his skills, non-stop. After taking so much damage, the young man falls to his knees, exhausted, as Lucius watches intently. Seeing the hero fight with his sword, the young man feels encouraged and holds his ground. Having healed almost everyone, only the girl remained, lying in a hospital bed. Then, approaching the bed, he extends his hand over the girl to heal her. Activating Sanshi Suime, he uses 1,000 skills from the future to complete her healing. Slowly opening her eyes, the girl murmurs Noboru's name, finally waking up. Jumping for joy, a young woman hugs her sister, who recognizes her as Shizuka. Hugging her sister, she apologizes for worrying her, offering a gentle smile. Looking at Lucius, she notices his condition, but he claims that for her, it's nothing. Lucius faces Nodoka with a smile, and she, surprised, asks what's going on. Rushing over, Shizuka tells Noboru to run, but he, confused, asks her to wait. At that, Nodoka says she'll go too, and Lucius needs to give her an item he's been saving for her. Sitting together, the two reflect on the temporary end of the incident, which had an intense conclusion. They tell the two of them to get up at once and return to the hospital room. He warns the young woman, telling her not to say something so stupid. Then the woman arrives, pointing out that it's a hospital room and they wouldn't do that there. Suddenly, he feels a strong impact, caught completely by surprise. They ask if he's already in perfect condition, thanking someone for their skill. He apologizes and thanks them for all their help, despite the attack he endured. Arguing against that, he says it isn't true, because he tried his best but couldn't succeed. Reinforcing their support, they say they couldn't have done it without him, expressing their pride in the young man. They thank him profusely for saving their sister, and for all the help he provided. At that moment, a small character thinks about giving the young man a special reward. Then the man readies himself, saying he's going to tell him a secret. He reveals that his father is likely alive, completely shocking the young man. He tells him to keep quiet, as this is top secret information. He understands the boy's confusion, knowing he must be full of questions now. However, he explains that he can't answer all of his questions at the moment. Grabbing the young man, he tells him to stand up and surpass himself. To succeed, he must reach the level where he can discover the whole truth. He remembers a smiling man, telling him that he would reach the top without fear. Then he looks up, thinking about the possibility that his father might be alive, but he can't call his mother, because a secret always has a good reason. As he moves away from the city, he knows that he still knows nothing. Aware of this, he plans to find the information about his father on his own. Walking through the city, he reflects on his father, determined to move forward. With a determined look, he declares that he will give his all in everything he does. Vowing to reach the top, he promises to push himself harder and harder. The scene changes. A meeting begins to present reports. The meeting starts with a request for Atlas's report, who speaks up immediately. He reports that things are going well, having cleared 3 dungeons, and then complains about his clothes. The leader reminds him about the proper attire, and Atlas calls him a goody two-shoes again. Calling on the next person, he asks for Electra's report, who calmly files her nails. Preparations for the end are underway. The hysterical woman's plan is moving along, but she can't find any joy in it. Electra is surprised as someone says that a child can't understand the beauty of the end. Stomping her foot, she demands to know who's calling her a child, pointing out their age difference is only 2 years. He argues that age is just for show. What matters is what's inside, and that's why he calls her a child. Interrupting the argument, the leader says that's enough and calls on the next person, Maya, for her report. Maya reports a problem. The mind control bug has been neutralized. Someone asks what that means. One of them explains that they helped, but Marobe is the one responsible, asking him to please explain everything. Marobe then agrees to explain, stating it is the duty of the elite to help their inferiors understand. Continuing, he says there isn't much to explain. They simply found something interesting during a routine experiment. Impatient, Atlas tells him to stop stalling and just reveal what it is. Merobe finally reveals that a newly awakened person has just appeared in the world. They ask Merobe if the information is true, and he promptly confirms it. They say it wasn't a normal ability. It nullified everything without any side effects. This person is definitely an awakened one. He finds it interesting, asking if someone who bit the apple has appeared. He then questions what Alcyone will do. Alcyone replies that even with another irregular, their goal remains unchanged, the salvation of the world. Startled, they realize the boss has arrived unannounced. They ask him to give a warning next time as they kneel before him. He states that the world does not accept them because their methods are not just, because sometimes he will sacrifice innocents, causing great harm, far from the justice they accept. With his hand outstretched, he says he will save the world without abandoning his cause. Shouting, he proclaims he will never drown in such sweetness and false justice. Holding a globe, he says that 6 stars follow different paths, and one will be the light. With all their arms raised, they wish for the brightest star to guide them in the world. Then they all promise to meet his expectations, without failing their mission. One of them bows, mentioning the great lord, full of reverence and respect. His figure reflects in someone's eyes, like a guiding star shining in the heavens. They reveal his name, Don Pleiades, the great leader of the meeting. Questioning his past defeats, he vows that this time against the monster, it will be different. Preparing his strike, he focuses to unleash a powerful attack against his opponent. Charging forward, the warrior hits the creature with a swift, strong blow. Leaping, the fighter lands a powerful strike right on the beast's head. A clean cut tears through the enemy's skin, splattering blood all around. Seeing the wounded creature, the young man wonders if he has won the battle. His mouth agape, he realizes he has actually won the fight. Celebrating his victory, he shouts that he finally defeated the bear without a top-tier skill. Just then, the environment seems to reverberate with the intensity of the finished battle. After Nodoka-san awoke, Lucius-san removed the penalty and returned to his country. The training battles with Lucius-san were tough, but they resulted in the strength he now possessed. Holding the stone, he realizes he has finally reached the point of surpassing his old benchmark. Despite the victory, he notes that he can't gain any more skills as the penalty gets heavier. Announcing he's going home, he decides that his journey for the day has come to an end. On a new day, he affirms that his father is alive and that he needs to get stronger to find him. Pondering the difficult path ahead, he decides he will work hard, one step at a time. Returning home, the young man greets his mother from a distance as leaves fall gently. The next day, Noboru meets Shizuka, who greets him cheerfully. She asks if he's tired, but he replies that he was just worried about something. Playfully, Shizuka offers to listen, asking him to tell her everything. Thinking about becoming a hero, he confirms it's about what Lucius-san said about his father. Ever since that conversation, he feels he needs to become a hero, but after the fight, it seems distant. He understands he needs more strength, but he still can't shake the feeling. With a smile, Shizuka says she has just one thing to tell him. Shizuka praises Noboru, telling him he has really gotten much stronger. Surprised, he asks her what she's talking about. Not understanding. She explains that he can now fight against someone he once considered incredible, showing his growth. Perplexed, he wonders if he has really grown that much. Confirming he's stronger, she suggests that if he's still anxious, they can move forward together. Shizuka then invites him to hold hands, if he wouldn't mind. He smiles and says he wouldn't mind his friend's invitation at all. So, they walk hand in hand, with Shizuka thinking it's all very cute. Suddenly, she remembers something, and invites Noboru to go to the lake with her. At the lake, she explains it's a place for priests to swim and fish, saying she needs a break. Excited, she convinces him, and he accepts the invitation to have fun with her. As she leaves, she promises to email him the details and says goodbye to Noboru. He's left a bit confused, wondering what just happened. Realizing he impulsively accepted the invitation, he wonders if this is a date. Worried, he wonders who to ask for help, having no friends to talk to about this. He thinks of Lucius-san but gives up, imagining what his mother would say about it. So, he kneels with his phone in hand, praying for the wisdom of the internet. Searching for information, he dives into the collective wisdom floating around the web. Arriving at the lake, Shizuka sees Noboru in very flashy clothes. With a hat and a surfboard, he says he followed the collective knowledge for the occasion. After changing clothes, they take public transport, heading to the lake more discreetly. Shizuka realizes this is her first trip with Noboru, feeling excited. Matching her excitement, Noboru agrees that he's also pretty thrilled about the situation. Remembering he was popular, he thinks he can lead Shizuka properly. Thinking of something cool to say, he decides he needs to be a good companion. Just then, Shizuka touches his nose, catching the young man by surprise on the transport. She tells him to relax and enjoy himself, and he agrees that she's right. Shizuka explains the surroundings, mentioning an inn, a forest, and even a dungeon. When they arrive, Shizuka is already in the water, while Noboru looks confused. Pointing, the young man asks who those people swimming in the water are. Shizuka replies that everyone there are priests, pointing to one of them swimming. Happily, she reveals that this is a training camp for the clan. Somewhat surprised, Noboru realizes that this is a training camp, and so the blue sky stretches out as a bird flies peacefully by. It seems his first date had actually turned into a training camp. Arriving at the location, they are welcomed by a young woman who informs them about the luggage. Curious, he asks about the purpose of the place, not understanding the situation. Cheerfully, the young woman reveals to everyone that it was a special camp. Then she explains that they would be holding a training camp for priestesses, leaving everyone shocked. Explaining the situation, she says she could not allow the two of them to sleep together there. Indignant, he tries to justify himself by saying he only planned a quick visit. Being honest, she comments that even the camp itself should not have been allowed. At that moment, someone pats his head, explaining that an exception was made because he was a savior. Confirming it, she says the other girls also agreed with the decision. Then she asks Shizuka to behave because there were other girls at the location. Annoyed, she squeezes Shizuka's face, making her complain about the pain immediately. While Shizuka acts childishly, he watches the situation curiously. As the scene shifts, a girl appears with a somewhat surprised expression. At that moment, Shizuka questions him, and he desperately tries to defend himself. Joking around, she grabs his hand, and their camp officially begins. At first, he felt overwhelmed being surrounded only by women, but the girls were very kind. In fact, they were almost too kind, curious about his relationship with Shizuka. A few small incidents happened, but they managed to get through everything without major problems. Besides that, the priestesses were far more skilled explorers, so he had a lot to learn there. Thanks to them, he felt closer to his goal because the girls understood him. Looking at the lake, he is surprised by the natural beauty of the place. The lake seemed even more beautiful, even after seeing the scenery again after some time. Suddenly, someone calls him, and he quickly turns around to see who it is. Seeing the girls, he compliments them, saying they looked incredible. Finding his reaction cute, they plan something else to surprise him even more. Pulling Shizuka along, they encourage her to hurry toward the edge of the lake. With sparkling eyes, he watches the situation while waiting to see what happens next. Then Shizuka appears wearing a different swimsuit and receives compliments from the other girls. Shocked, he becomes speechless, simply admiring Shizuka's beauty. Noticing his stare, he explains that her beauty made him lose focus. Affectionately, Shizuka approaches him and says something while the boy listens carefully. Watching from afar, the other girls comment on how close the two friends are. Annoyed by the situation, Shizuka hits Noboru's chibi form, sending him flying away. Excited, the girls invite Shizuka to join them in the water, ready to have fun. Thoughtful, Shizuka reflects on the situation, still slightly bothered by everything. With a smile, he compliments her, saying she looked perfect in that outfit. Embarrassed, the girl reacts to the compliments, immediately blushing deeply. Pointing to the side, he talks about a beach volleyball game. Together, the two observe the beach, ready to join the other friends. On the third morning, among the trees, Noboru stretches while preparing for the day. Determined, he hears someone calling him and quickly turns around. Curious, he responds to the person who called him, waiting for the explanation. Right after that, the young woman introduces herself, saying she had heard a lot about him there. Perplexed, he asks for the young woman's name, failing to recognize her at first. Finally, the new member reveals herself as Mai Ruixi, who had arrived from China. Politely, he introduces himself as Takagami Noboru while greeting the new companion. Happy, Mai says he can call her Ruixi and mentions that they are the same age. At that moment, she compliments him, saying his honesty was one of his positive traits. Soon after, he takes the opportunity to ask the new friend something. Curious, Mai responds with a small hum while waiting for his question. Playfully, Mai warns him that her measurements are secret and that she will not answer that question. Laughing, he clarifies that he was not asking about that but about something else instead. Perplexed, he asks why she speaks in such a unique and almost strange way. With a smile, Mai explains that she learned Japanese through anime and manga. Curious, she asks if he was also very interested in that subject. He then asks about something else, visibly intrigued by his new companion. Suddenly, the duo hears something and quickly looks around to see what it was. Startled, he shouts after seeing the monster and wonders what it was doing outside. At that moment, the monster attacks and strikes Mai, throwing her into the air. Suddenly, the young woman stands up and reveals that she was not only funny, but also extremely strong. A character expresses surprise at the other's skill, who explains the technique is an activated strike. Seeing the defeated monster, he says the skill is strong enough to break even rocks. He asks if the strike is an ability, but she says that's not it. Confused, he hears from her that it isn't a common ability at all. Revealing the secret, she tells him it's pure strength gained through training, and he praises her for it. Changing the subject, She asks about his power. Noboru explains he has one, but with difficult conditions. Then she suggests they train together, surprising Noboru, who asks if she means with him. Smiling, she confirms her invitation, saying that's exactly what she wanted. In exchange for his stories, she offers to teach him a more efficient way to use his body, leaving Noboru confused. Seeing his confusion, she asks him what exactly he was imagining. She explains she's talking about movement and agility, and he, embarrassed, claims he already knew that. Persistently, she insists that by learning more about body movement, he can become stronger. Looking determined, he clenches his fist and says the offer sounds great. Reflected in the water, they both agree to the idea, ready to begin training. Starting the training, she explains the importance of breathing, asking him to mimic her movements. To his surprise, Mai's instructions for the strike were very precise and easy to understand. Watching him, she followed his every move as he trained, focused on the technique. Then, Mai demonstrates how to execute the cut, showing him the correct way to perform the strike. Noticing the difference in sound, Noboru is impressed, and she explains it's due to experience. Afterward, Noboru teaches her a technique from Lucius, and Mai quickly masters the new move with ease. 3 days passed, and he started to genuinely enjoy training alongside Mai, finding their partnership great. After training, Mai praises his effort and offers him a drink, which he gratefully accepts. Drinking it with relish, Noboru compliments the drink, and she comments on his peculiar way of drinking. Even after just a few days, Mai praises his dedication, saying no one else lasts that long. Confirming his effort, Noboru admits he always gives his all in everything he does. At this, she explains why he's so persistent in his training with her. She then adds that it's because of his special ability. Agreeing, Noboru reveals that it has several complicated conditions to be used. Curious, he asks Mai why she learned techniques unrelated to abilities. Answering his question, she begins to explain that her own ability also has a reason. She says her ability isn't exactly normal, making him curious about her explanation. Perplexed, he asks if she's talking about a unique ability, different from the others. Mai agrees, revealing her ability is very problematic and difficult to handle. Then, she says she's going to tell him a secret, asking him not to reveal it to anyone. She extends her hand and makes a motion, beckoning something closer. Answering her call, a fierce wolf appears and quickly approaches her. Startled, he asks if more monsters are appearing in the area again. Puzzled about its origin, he thinks and realizes something shocking about the situation. Then, shocked, Noboru asks Mai if the wolf is her ability, controlling the beast. Confirming, Mai explains that her ability lets her control monsters, but only a little. She reveals this ability has caused her problems, as it's difficult to fight with. Because of that, she trained hard and pushed herself to be able to handle herself alone in combat. Due to this training, she became the strong person she is now. Then, Mai asks Noboru if he also finds her scary after her revelation. Noboru completely denies it, saying he can't even imagine how much she dedicated herself. He said he also had difficulties with his own unique ability in the past. So, he concludes that Mai overcame everything on her own, which makes him admire her even more. With a smile, Mai accepts the compliments and says she doesn't feel scary. Then, she surprises Noboru with a sudden hug, which startles him. She says it's a reward for being a good boy, telling him to enjoy it. Embarrassed, Noboru asks her to stop, but Mai insists she won't let go. After a while, she calls out to him, and Noboru thanks her for the time they spent together. Then, she announces that the break is over, and it's time to resume training. Noboru is startled by the sudden change, but agrees to return to the exercises without complaint. Changing the subject, he asks Mai about the monster she had summoned. At this, Mai makes a motion with her hand, mercilessly flinging the wolf far away. Shocked, Noboru comments on her lack of mercy, but Mai explains that monsters are just monsters. She reminds him that the secret about her ability must be kept between them. Terrified, he begs her not to spread that lie, promising not to tell her secret. Laughing, she says that will depend on his behavior from now on. Nearby, the creature revealed its mouth while a human foot slowly approached. Then, 2 creatures resembling a wolf and a goblin stayed alert within the forest. Looking upward, the 2 monsters noticed a silent bird resting on a branch. In the middle of the darkness, a red eye pulsed while staring at something. Quickly, a wing or claw moved, leaving a trail through the air. Rising into the skies, a bird flew away while feathers fell as the creature watched in fear. Finally, several feathers floated slowly downward within the complete darkness. Walking along the trail, one of them noticed someone and identified him as Noboru. Raising a hand, someone called out to Noboru, who replied by asking about Shizuka. Greeting each other on the trail, Shizuka said Noboru seemed very excited, and he confirmed it. While Shizuka complimented him, another voice suddenly shouted loudly, interrupting their conversation. Surprised, Noboru was suddenly caught off guard by Mai, who hugged him from behind while laughing. Excited, Mai announced that they would train together again, leaving Shizuka with an annoyed expression. At that moment, Shizuka tried explaining that she was going to invite Noboru for sword training. Ignoring her words, Mai shouted that she did not care, while Noboru looked completely shocked. Smiling, Mai explained that in situations like this, the first one to arrive gets priority. Suddenly, Shizuka frowned, clearly irritated by the situation, and just like that, the conflict between the two girls seemed ready to begin. Mai insisted that she had already reserved Noboru for an entire week, calling her rival naive. Afterward, Mai declared that she would make the next reservation first as well, preventing Shizuka from having her turn. Surprised, Noboru asked about the heavy atmosphere surrounding the two girls. While squeezing Noboru, both girls asked who he wanted to train with, promising special bonuses. Not knowing what to do, Noboru could only stutter while cold sweat ran down his face. Then, Noboru came up with an idea, asking if all of them could train together. Shocked, both girls rejected the idea of training together and questioned why he suggested it. Explaining his reasoning, Noboru said it would be better if all of them trained together, showing the logic behind it. Thinking it over, Shizuka and Mai agreed, accepting Noboru's suggestion. Mai told Noboru to go ahead and save them a spot while she brought Shizuka along. Walking through the forest, Mai smiled and suggested they talk while moving forward. Shizuka confirmed that she wanted to talk, but Mai immediately asked if she liked Noboru. Concerned, Shizuka warned Mai to be careful with her words. Smiling, Mai explained that words have power and become reality if repeated enough. Shizuka revealed that even when trying to hide something, repeating it eventually makes the feeling real. Back with Noboru, he reflected that important feelings would bring regret if treated too lightly. Looking down, Shizuka quietly murmured a confession before stopping herself midway through the sentence. After that, she explained honestly that she did not understand romantic feelings. Perplexed, Mai listened as Shizuka said she understood the logic behind love, but not the emotions themselves. Surprised, Mai asked if Shizuka was popular because she had heard rumors about it. Closing her eyes, Shizuka confirmed that many people had confessed to her, but there was a reason behind it. In a flashback, a girl asked Shizuka why she confessed despite them never speaking before. Then, the girl answered that it was because Shizuka was Nodoka Suzutani's sister. Because of that, Shizuka remembered how her sister was always ahead of her, like a mirror she could never escape. Showing off a certificate, Shizuka's sister was described as cool, beautiful, and capable of great achievements. Furthermore, Shizuka's sister was loved by everyone and extremely popular, inspiring admiration everywhere. With a faint smile, Shizuka remembered that she loved her sister, but also admired her, and wanted to become like her. Shizuka felt that everyone always saw her sister through her, even if they did not mean to. Thinking about Noboru, she realized that he was the first person to truly see her. Even knowing about her sister, he saw her without filters and helped her a lot. His eyes were always focused on her, and that made her happy while making her want to know him better. Shizuka wondered if that feeling was romantic love, surprising Mai with her words. Mai asked why Shizuka was making that face, complaining about hearing so much cheesy romance talk so early in the morning. Shizuka did not understand what Mai meant, but the other girl insisted that love definitely existed. Then, Mai pointed ahead while explaining that love was not something special, but the complete opposite. Shizuka listened carefully as Mai explained that love was simply when feelings became natural. It was a natural feeling that had become part of her, and Shizuka realized that she truly liked Noboru. Mai complained that the story had ruined her morning mood, but Shizuka apologized. Even so, Mai commented that Noboru would probably prefer her own attributes, mocking her rival. Shocked, Shizuka let out a confused "huh," while Mai laughed at her reaction. Shizuka asked Mai to explain better, but she refused while keeping it a secret. Finally, Noboru called out to the two girls, waving for them to hurry over. Shizuka asked Noboru if she could ask him something while making a strange expression. At that moment, Shizuka said he was a boy, which explained the interest, but that things were moving too fast. Confused, Mai asked what was happening while Noboru also questioned the situation. Right after that, Mai remembered something she needed to do and left the two behind. Worried, Noboru tried stopping Mai, but she was already running away into the distance. At that moment, Shizuka ran after Mai so she would not lose sight of her in the forest. Talking on the phone, Mai commented that they were getting closer than expected. Thinking carefully, Mai decided she would not change the plan and would simply deal with both of them at once. Finally, she concluded that if she failed to lure them in, she would eliminate both of them without hesitation. The sun is shown shining as someone taps on a paper, drawing attention. The girl explains the need for moderation, and the guy readily gets it. Upset by the situation, The guy wonders why all of this is happening. Annoyed, he looks for Mai, shouting her name as he goes. Looking out at the scenery, one of them notes that Mai is gone and asks what they should do. Heading back to the cabin, he says something might have happened. The girl agrees and sends a text. Arriving at the cabin, 3 people are surprised to hear a question. When they ask about Mai, they're told no one there has seen her. Deciding to look for more people, one of them suggests they go together. Meanwhile, other friends are out on the rocks, some of them fishing. Worried about Mai, he asks about her phone, but the girl says his message hasn't been read. Appearing quickly, a girl yells that the situation is very serious. Leaning on her friend, another girl asks what happened. She tells them about the monsters in the forest, explaining that Nodoka is holding them off. The other girl questions why they're even there. Announcing she'll alert the others, she asks for their help, and then Noboru runs over. Looking at the sky, he thinks about Mai's absence and what it could mean. Meanwhile, intense blasts of purple energy fill the forest. Alerting everyone, the girl shouts about Dellen spiders and gray wolves coming to attack. Arriving on the scene, Shizuka finds Nodoka and Noboru, who greet her. Then, a goblin monster reveals itself, baring its sharp teeth, ready to strike. Shizuka asks Nodoka why the monsters suddenly left the dungeon. The girl explains the situation, mentioning a stampede of monsters coming from outside. Agreeing, she praises the guy for quickly grasping the concept of a stampede. In a new scene, studies show that dungeons become oversaturated with monsters, causing stampedes. Despite the explorers, the reports always indicated normal conditions, with no apparent problems. Before they search for the cause, the girl asks them to deal with the immediate problem and asks for their help. As he strikes a blow, Noboru asks if anyone has seen Mai around. He reports that he hasn't seen his friend anywhere and is worried. Thinking about Mai's ability, he considers whether he should talk about it or keep it a secret. At this, she asks Noboru if he also considers her a scary person. "Thanks," Noboru says, fully trusting Mai. Asking Nodoka about Mai's ability, he waits for an answer. Then a giant spider spins its web, about to attack the girl, who waits for it. Delivering a precise blow, the girl asks if Mai's ability is really martial arts. Countering the wolf's blow, he responds negatively, indicating it wasn't that. At this, Shizuka announces that she saw Mai nearby. Curious, the two ask where she was seen, and Shizuka explains she saw her friend heading for the forest. Hearing the news, the guy is startled and shows concern for his friend. As he thinks, he clenches his fist, determined to act. Deciding to save Mai, he runs off, but the girl worries about him going alone. Asking if she can help, she joins the fight, with others attacking a spider monster. With an arrow, the girl shoots at the monsters, which are everywhere. With a focused gaze, she prepares a new move, ready for another attack. Agreeing not to abandon their friend, Nodoka and Shizuka stay behind to deal with the monsters. Thus, Noboru advances towards the dungeon, facing a wolf and a goblin along the way. Moving quickly, he says he'll break through it all at once. Activating 10 skills, the guy prepares for what's coming. With the activation of Batsuzan Gaiseki, he throws a powerful blow, making the ground explode. Hitting the ground, the blow causes a large explosion, kicking up a lot of dust.
Satisfied, the guy confirms he knows what to do, giving a thumbs up. Arriving at the location, they find someone lying on the ground, unconscious. Identifying an unconscious team member without serious injuries, Shizuka asks for help. Observing the sleeping staff member, he thinks about waiting, but decides to move on. Apologizing, he reveals he's going to the dungeon, and Shizuka decides to go with him. The guy apologizes for his selfishness, admitting he's worried about Mai.
Smiling at him, Shizuka is willing to go along to rescue their friend. Then, she gives him a light tap, saying she wants to save Mai too. Holding hands, they decide to press on, aware of the dungeon's danger. Together, the two run quickly into the portal, ready for the unknown. Entering the dungeon, they find the absence of monsters strange, but Shizuka says it's unusual. Warning them to be careful, the girl asks to keep going, but the guy replies that it won't be necessary. Waiting for the two on the path, a girl, surrounded by creatures, announces she was waiting for them.